Good, yeah, we're streaming.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning. Bonjour.
Welcome to the January meeting of the Charter School Advisory Board. The mission of the Charter School Advisory Board, I think we're supposed to do the pledge first. Ms. Parlay, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Charter School Advisory Board. The Charter School Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. Charter School Advisory Board Ethics Statement. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the Advisory Board. Does any member of the Advisory Board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? I will need to recuse from the Renewal for Movement School.
I recuse from Roseville Charter.
I'm going to recuse from Uproar.
If so, please state them for the record. Thank you. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. We have several sets of minutes, I think, Ashley, to approve. Which ones do we need to approve?
We're approving the December meeting minutes and then the January 3rd special call meeting.
Can we do them together? Do we have to? Okay. Can I get them? First of all, are there any changes to either of those sets of minutes?
How do we look at the amended, I received the draft, I sent some edits. I don't know that I ever saw the final.
Okay.
How would that, just open it again and?
Yeah, if you send it to me, then I should, they would be already incorporated and then finalized, they should be.
Right.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Okay. So the next thing is, okay, Ashley, I guess the next thing is amendments.
The special call
The agenda.
The special call meeting?
For the agenda.
Oh, we ought to approve the agenda for today.
Yes.
Are there any changes to today's agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, Hilda Parlay approves the January meeting agenda for January 10th.
A second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
We have the minutes from the special call meeting. Did we approve those?
Yeah, we approved them together.
Together.
Mhm. Okay, so I guess we're ready for amendments.
All right. The first amendment we have today is Lake Lure Classical Academy, and I don't have my printed materials, so I'm going to read it from the screen. It is a mission change. Lake Lure has been in operation for many years. It's one of our older charter schools, and they have they had a mission revision in 2015 to Lake Lure Classical Academy, a Challenge Foundation Academy, provides an educational community with high academic and character expectations, creating lifelong learners. They have gone through a strategic planning, much like many of our other schools that decide to make some tweaks to their mission to better align with what they are actually doing on the school and what their overall mission and vision is. So the new board-approved Lake Lure mission is Lake Lure Classical Academy's mission is to offer a classical, knowledge-based education that fosters critical thinking, civic responsibilities, and virtue for all. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair. And virtue for all, is that a typo?
I don't think so. Virtue for all.
Fosters it associates with that word foster. They want to
Yeah,
foster
fosters
virtue
Yeah.
in their student body.
Do we need to vote on these individually, or,
Yes.
okay, can I get a motion on Lake Lure Classical Academy's amendment?
I make a motion to accept Lake Lure Classical Academy's amendment. to the
I second that.
statement.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. Thank you, Todd. I see that you're on here remotely, so we will bring this to the state board in February, and I will keep you posted. All right. So the next one is Unity Classical Charter School, and you all heard from this school last month with the other enrollment requests that were brought forward. It was tabled, and you asked that they come back with a little bit more clarity and also consider reducing the amount that they were requesting in terms of expansion. They have done that, so the materials on eBoard are all updated. They have, they were originally requesting 700, they're now requesting 600 over their 359 that they have currently. So the school is on the line. They've also provided information regarding the financials and the impact of this expansion on their financials, as well as saturation data for the area in Charlotte that they occupy. And then they also provided some growth statistics in terms of their academic growth comparative to other schools within that area. And that's in the appendix included online.
Okay, Ashley, did you say they're asking for 600 above the 300, or they're asking for 600 total?
600 total, sorry. Last month they had asked for 700. They decided to reduce that to 600.
They're online right now?
They should be online.
All right, could you ask them if they would like to go ahead and talk to us about this, the new plan?
Sheila, are you online?
I am, thank you.
All right, if you just want to talk a little bit about this, the new materials submitted and the reduction from 700 to 600, that would be great.
Absolutely. Well, after our first meeting, I felt we had a good discussion and brought your feedback and input to the board. We had a good discussion at the board meeting, and we all concurred that your feedback was very sound, and therefore the board voted unanimously to go from 700 down to 600 to ameliorate any of the concerns that you had brought up and to better set us up for success, as we also agreed with many of the things that you brought up. So as you can see, we now have the new table that now reflects that 600 number instead. It obviously aligns with the attrition, but I think it makes sense for you as you're looking over that table for about 5 years there, how our overall numbers from K to 8th grade will go. The other thing is, keep in mind right now we are a K through 6th grade. So part of those numbers going up is every year we add another grade. So that 5-year table, one reason why you're going to see zeros and for the growth is because we're adding another 100 kids every year. In our 7th grade, for example, next year, the next year would be 8th. So that's another reason for the request of numbers to go up, is to also take care of the new grades that will come every year following.
Okay, so you currently are K6, and
Correct.
and currently in 6th grade you have 29 students. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so
Just as a reminder, our school was not ready. We're currently moving in over break, but we had to stay in our church because last year we were supposed to be able, when we got approved for growth, we were supposed to move into our new school facility, but we were unable to move in because it wasn't ready yet.
okay,
So we could not grow the way we wanted to grow.
okay, so when are you actually moving into the new building?
Right now.
Oh, okay, currently.
Correct. We held off to the Christmas break because that's obviously a move you can't do while school's going on.
And what is your current wait list per grade?
I don't have the breakout by grade. We have around 150, 160 students on our wait list. Our lottery opened as well, and it's showing good growth, but I didn't have it broken down by grade.
So how
I
many,
can get you that if you need it
okay, how many total?
in time.
How many total do you have applied right now for your lottery? You said you just opened.
Oops. We can get you that number. We currently have just opened up, and it's a new lottery system. So I'll have my helper over here try to pull that number up for you.
All right, if I'm understanding this chart correctly, it looks like where you're
We'll say,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It looks to me
I
like
was-
you're big.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, you go first, I'll wait.
I was going to say that 150 number was just over Christmas break. I know one of the things that the board had asked was what was the interest rate? What kind of interest from our community were we getting? So we put a survey out to let them know the lottery was coming and if people would be interested. So that 150 was literally over these last three and a half weeks over the holidays. So that number was people we let know through like the neighborhood to come into this survey to see if they were interested. So that 150 to 160 families now are literally just came from right now. So if that helps you at all. So, and I'll take your question.
Okay, it looks to me like your major growth is K to 1 and 5 to
Correct.
6, is that correct?
Yes, and K through our probably second to even third grade tends to be in our last 5 years of existence to be our biggest growth usually, and specifically that K through first grade. And so we usually try to book those a little larger, even though K through second grade tend to be our smaller classroom sizes, obviously, because they're K through second grade. We tend to have more classes for them to better aid us with attrition as we move higher up. It's also harder for our school. We tend to be a bit of a rigorous school, so it can be a little bit harder of a transition for older kids to come in to the school. So we like to have enough assistants, teachers for kids who are coming in at higher grades. So we don't like to take as many so that we can make sure that we're aiding them for success. We also actually have IAs, TAs for our older kids for that reason alone, to better aid them in that kind of a transition. Being a classical school, it can be a little bit different.
Anybody else have any questions?
I'm still confused if you say about your attrition and it's harder for the kids to catch up later grades, then why are you adding in year 24-25 100 going from 72 students 5th grade, and then those will move up, and then you're actually adding 121 in 6th grade. So that goes counterintuitive to what you just described, especially because your kindergarten is decreasing from 107 in 23-24 to 85 in 24-25. I would think you would keep those numbers higher. I'm just looking at sustainability going forward. I know you're asking for 600, but I'm concerned about sustainability going forward, especially looking at your grid.
I think the reason that those numbers are higher at that grade or at that year is because the preceding years, the enrollment is larger. So right now we only have 47 students in 5th grade. And so, yeah, and then we have 71 in 4th. So when you look from 71 to the 121, the jump isn't quite as significant.
And so in other words, that those first years where they're bigger number, it's rolling, those are just those years where that big class is rolling through the grades. So in time, they'll come back down like the other grades did to where it's only like the 4 classes. Does that make sense? But we have to, obviously, we're not going to bring in a large class and then say, oh, well, we're only going to take so many. So we're just letting those bigger numbers of classes naturally go through the grades that they would, and as they progress, that's why you're seeing some of these bubble maybe numbers, I guess you would say it, but in time they'll come back down to a normal size, because the overall goal is to have those 4 classes for every single grade. Make sense?
I agree with what you're saying, but that's not what the numbers represent, because you're rolling numbers up from 5th grade in 23-24. Then it rolls to, you're adding actually 50 students then in 24-25 to 121 to 6th grade. So it's not attrition and it's not just rolling, you're actually adding another 50. So what you're telling me doesn't match what the grid says.
Sheila, do you mind if I respond?
Please, Dana, thank you.
I'm Dana Goldfarb. I'm a board member and the treasurer, and I help put the numbers together. So I might be better positioned to help you understand the trends in the graph. First off, in kindergarten and 1st grade, as Sheila was saying, we're actually overbooking kindergarten and 1st grade. There's actually more classes. We start in 22-23 with 6 classes in kindergarten. It drops off to 5 in 23-24 and then levels off at its normal state at 4 classes in 24-25. And again, the reason being, historically, we found booking kindergarten kids is much easier than booking some of the other higher grade levels. Now, when it comes to the higher grade levels, we're actually we level off at 5 per grade. So that's more than the 4 that we have in kindergarten through 5th. That's why the steady state is higher. But within each grade, if you look at 6th grade, we have 2 this year. We'll have 4 classes next year, and we'll level off at 5 classes in the 24-25 season. For 7th grade, we're only booking 2 next year. That'll jump to 4 the year after and 5. So the total classes are changing, but there is a ramp up period. It goes from 2 to 4 to 5 for the higher grade classes. We think that's being conservative.
What indication do you have that there are nearly 1,000 children out there that in 4 years from now are going to want to go to your school, given how many schools there are in Mecklenburg County?
If you look at in the appendix, you'll see a study that we had done when we were originally making plans to build our school. It was a saturation study, and it shows that there's only 1.4%. If we book the full 936 kids that we hope to be able to book when we're at steady state, that represents about 1.4% of the kids within the age level that we're looking to book within our school. I understand that that's well below the 5% level that most folks look at when deciding whether or not we've reached saturation or not. So we do think there's demand out there, as well as if you look at some of the other data in the appendix, it's a very dynamic and growing environment. There's a lot of new buildings that are being built. It's been expanding dramatically. We think that trend is going to continue.
So what part of the city are you currently pulling most of your kids from?
I would say most of our students are pulled from our community, but we do have students that come from as far as 45 minutes away. We do have families coming from Gastonia, Union County, Uptown, but the majority is coming from our actual Still Creek area.
We do have busing.
tend to be more overpopulated.
So just looking at your projections, this is why I'm focusing on the later numbers, not necessarily the 600. With 600 students, your projections show you'll have a deficit of still 440,000. And then 23-24, you're gonna need 800 students to at least come to a break even. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on that. And again, you said because of the rigor, you would want to start in kindergarten. So that's why I don't understand why you would add an extra class in 6th grade and have 5 classes when you have 4 classes coming from 5th grade. Isn't that going to be hard to get those 50 kids up to speed to add that extra class? That's where I'm confused and concerned. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does make sense. And I guess that's where I have a question for the board. I'm just curious. Let's say our trends don't go like we think they're going to go. If you approve a certain number, is that, like you're saying, let's say we find that the demand stays high and we wanted to keep those numbers in kindergarten and keep moving up. If you're okay and that's for 600, does a school have the flexibility to change the numbers inside, knowing though that you are staying at that 600 growth number? Because at the end of the day, right, it's just what we're working on today. We know we're going to have a huge influx. Charlotte, specifically the area where our school is located, is building neighborhoods upon neighborhoods upon neighborhoods. There's right now where we are, there's already a 600 with plans for another 800 housing single family homes. So we think that our numbers are accurate. But let's say hypothetically they all end up being kindergarten and 1st grade families, right? Do we have the flexibility then, like what you're saying here, as you're bringing up possibilities of weakness in the chain, so to speak, to be able to go in and say, you know what, we are seeing more numbers still in kindergarten. Let's keep 5 classes in K, and in time, maybe it'll only be 4 classes in 5th and 6th. Is that something that we're able to do? I think right now we're able to do these numbers. Only the future can tell, right? We've done our studies. We're taking those mathematicians and those who look at projections at the word that they'll be accurate. But I ask, if that isn't correct, would we have the flexibility to change, to increase numbers at the lower grades if we stayed at the 600 number, as you had suggested?
Yeah, internally you can set that up however you want. Dave, I have a question though. Going from 22-23 to 23-24 would again be more than 30%. If this amendment is approved, is it approved at all these numbers all the way out, or are they going to have to come back next year and ask for more than 30%?
They're asking, the amendment request is to run out the cycle what they're showing us today.
So it is for the whole time?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question for Sheila about the budget. This is Rita Hare. Are your numbers correct? Are they pretty exact concerning your rent and debt service when you do move into your new building, which I understand you're currently doing?
Yes, and that's another reason why I brought our treasurer in case you had any other questions. But on a whole, yes, the debt servicing, what you see is what is there. Obviously, we have performance charters been amazing with us and working with us. But that being said, that, we owe them, right, for the new building. So
it's a contractual obligation at this point. We've signed the lease. So there's the rationale for the slight uptick in fiscal year 23-24 is currently we have not finished the 3rd floor. So there's about a $2 million incremental build in that time period. That's the rationale for the debt increase to go up in the 23-24 time when we finish off the third floor of our 80,000 square foot building.
It looks like you're into a heavy debt commitment. If you go from 365 to 600 with your student population, you're not doubling your population, or so you're not doubling that revenue, but you are more than tripling your rent and debt service not to mention other costs and expenses. And it's I can see why you're pushing for more students. It's going to be necessary to meet your financial obligations. I don't know that you'll be able to make that happen the way you anticipate. It seems like you're already in it, right? You've signed it, you're moving in, but how do you feel about that budget? What are you guys thinking? What are you guys thinking about that budget?
Well, I think last year, if everything had gone planned the way it would have, the board last year had approved for the 700, and you're right. That's exactly why we need the students to pay for the building. Hence, we signed everything, and of course, it wasn't ready in time. So that's why we had asked for that same number. And I think at 600, we went back, we re-looked at the number, and we can do it. But you're right, it is going to be more tight, obviously. The good news is there's a gym we can rent out. We have an amazing PTC that aids us with fundraisers. But at the end of the day, it's really students that helps us pay for it. So that's the main reason why we're asking for the growth, is to pay the bill of the building. I will say our community is really excited. We've actually got people taking pictures, and like I said, the emails, and that's why we did the survey just over the Christmas break alone. So I do think we're wanted by the community, which is good because we need the community to support us to pay the bill for the school.
And you do not know your wait list number today?
Not for the lottery, and it literally just opened up. We have a new lottery system, and for some reason, we wanted it all up, but for whatever reason, it's not opening up for us.
Mm-hmm. So you're asking for 600 students, but that's not even your break-even number. If you don't have a beginning balance, if you don't have some retained funds, you would not even break even with 600.
Dana, do you want to talk to that one?
The actual break even is, I ran some of those sensitivities for you. It's in the write-up. The break even, which would drive our cash flow to zero, would be 520 students. That would bring us to zero, a fiscal year 22-23 balance of zero. If we were required to stick with the 467 students or the 30% growth, then we would run a $1.1 million deficit.
Okay, Dana, in the budget you submitted, which is for next year, you show 600 in enrollment and with revenues of 5.8, but expenditures of 6.3. So that's not a break even.
No. The ending balance. I'm sorry. That ending balance would go to zero. We have $418,000 available in fiscal year 22-23 that's left at the end of the year. That money would go to zero. That's the break even I'm referring to. If we only had 520
and all of that,
students.
yes, and all of that is dependent on the fact that you must start out with the $859,000 in your balance before the year begins.
Yes, we have that.
I guess my concern, I don't see how we can say no if they're already moving into this building.
Mm-hmm.
They're committed to the building. And if we say no, we're essentially saying we are financially dooming you to not be able to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how we can say no.
Clarification, is it the whole chart or is it the 600?
It's the whole chart. They'll get the whole chart.
Because it says we are requesting maximum 600.
Yeah, that's for 600 for next year. That was what I was just asking Dave. He said if the amendment's approved, it would be the whole thing that's approved. And so they would not have to come back year after year and ask for more than 30%.
You could decide to do it.
The increase the following year is 33%, so we're almost there anyway.
Whatever motion that would be your decision, whether you're approving just for next year or the entire projected enrollment.
Maybe that's what we do. Maybe we approve it for the 600 for next year. And if they want to go above 30% the next year, they'd have to come back. But at least then we'd know whether or not they made the 600.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be probably more, I think the state board would probably be more open to that.
Mm-hmm.
For the, do the request for this 22-23 year at 600. And then if they need to go over 30% next year, then they can come back and everyone would be able to see how they're doing financially and how they're doing enrollment wise and those sort of things.
Well, can I get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion. I'm not quite sure how to word it. I guess the motion is to accept their request for increased enrollment as
To 600.
to 600.
For this year.
Mhm.
I second
you know, for this year.
Yeah, for 22, 23.
Yep.
Can I
22.
hear why, the argument, other than, like, that they put themselves in a financial situation that, to me, that's not a valid argument. They've already committed, otherwise anybody can come up here and say, we've committed money, you gotta approve us.
Well,
So what is the-
it's a little different. They were approved for more kids. Then the building didn't get finished, but it was already in process. They couldn't back down then.
Oh, so they had a certain amount of kids.
Yeah, they were approved for 700.
Because the building wasn't done.
Right.
They wanna go back to what they had.
Right, exactly.
Okay, sorry I missed that.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Just their letter that they submitted still ask for 700 at the end of the letter in the closing paragraph, if that's
Okay.
submitted as
You'll need to
documentation.
redo that letter so that it says 600 when we send it to the state board?
Understood.
Okay.
I do wanna say for the record, I don't think the chart makes any sense at all. Like, I think,
Well, we're only doing it for 1 year at this point, so.
but even then, they're starting off this trajectory with this 126 kindergartners that will be 85 in 3 years. I just hope they rethink it, because if they come back with the same chart, I would be very reluctant to even do it a year.
Well, I think if they come back, if they actually make their 600 for next year, I think that lends a lot of credibility to their possibility of being able to pull this off. And so I think giving them the opportunity to go for the 600 and see where they are next year is probably prudent. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, could you take a roll call vote, please, Ashley?
Yes, I will. Terry Stoops,
Aye.
John Eldridge, Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approved.
Shelley Bullard,
Aye.
Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
All right, it passes, Sheila, so I will be in touch with you about getting everything together to present to State Board in February. You don't actually present, but the materials that we will send to State Board.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so what's the next thing on this agenda?
Application.
Applications for development. That's right.
Oh, applications, okay. Okay. What time are they supposed to be here? What time is it scheduled for?
9:40.
Are the people from Unity Global here?
This is, this is financial.
Is anyone from
If, I don't know-
Financial Reform for Excellence in Education available online? All right. Well, do we want to take a quick break?
Yeah, let's take a quick break till 9:40.
Sounds good.
Oh, okay. Okay, just so you know, we're still streaming. IT's not here right now, so we're gonna let it stream, so please watch your microphones. Is anyone online remotely for free, the application, financial reform? Guess it's
Okay,
a-
well, I think we need to go ahead and discuss the application, even without any representatives. So, what are people's comments about the application?
Melanie, to go ahead and do the intro.
Yes, please, Melanie. Maybe they'll be there by then.
Yeah.
Sure.
Slide.
Okay, so we will move forward. Our previous slides just kind of noted the statutory and policy references for the application process. This is Melanie Rackley with the Office of Charter Schools. Between today and tomorrow, we'll hear our final first round applicants. We have a total of 5 schools. The first school today, Financial Reform for Excellence in Education, operating as Unity Global Academy. They propose operation in Alamance County in year 1, servicing grades K through 8 with 450 students. They round out in year 5, being a fully K through 12 school with 650 students at capacity at year 5. Unity Global Academy does propose to offer food service and transportation to their student body. They will not use the weighted lottery. They do not have a facility. There was not an LEA impact stated. They are not a repeat applicant, although it appears that their board was incremental in, they were part of the opening board for, I believe, Clover Garden and River Mill Academies in Alamance County. They will not use the CMO or EMO, did not use a CSO for their application assistance. So the application was deemed complete at submission. Because Unity Global did not give us any indication of where in Alamance they would be located, I was not able to create the heat map. So what I did was allow you to see those 4 schools that are charter schools that are in Alamance County. It's important to note that there are a total of 37 LEA schools in the Alamance Burlington Schools district. I also wanted to kind of give the surrounding 4 counties there so that we kind of look at the likelihood of student body commuting from those surrounding counties. So, and I do have the metrics for the number of charters and LEA schools that we have in those surrounding counties if you need those at request. So I can turn the floor over to you. We don't have, much by way of where in Alamance they will be. So whether or not they're going to be closer to the Orange County or even that Chatham County line, we do not know. So I'll open the floor up to you all for the discussion. Again, we have an hour allotted for this. We don't have the board here to discuss, so that will allow you all to throw out your questions and then do your deliberation.
Thank you. Has anybody shown up, Ashley? What about online?
Is there any representation from Financial Reform on the virtual platform? Mr. Bosley or Mr. Morcom?
Okay, hearing none.
Okay, I don't know how we interview an applicant if they're not here, so I'm going to make a motion that we do not move Financial Reform for Excellence in Education forward at this time.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I don't know if it's incumbent upon us to contact them or to reach out, but this is an accomplished board. It seems like there must be confusion or some reason that they would not be attending today. Is anyone aware of anything?
My understanding was that we attempted to move this to tomorrow, and they were not available tomorrow, and that was why we needed to do it today. So this time is actually at their request?
That is correct. We had, they were originally scheduled for today. We moved them till tomorrow because of all the renewal discussions. They contacted us and said that several of their board members who are college administrators or professors were not available. Could we move them back? And we accommodated that. So we communicated this time last week, correct? So this is a very current communication that we had with them.
There's no way they're not aware
That
that
is
today
correct.
was approved for
That
their
is correct.
interview.
Because we even have emails thanking us for moving.
I would like to discuss the application, at least somewhat, and my reason for that is, were they to decide to submit the same application in the round that has just opened, they would be wasting their time from my point of view. And so we probably should give them some clue as to why they would need to do some things if they're planning to resubmit this app.
So I'll honor that and rescind can I rescind or we have to actually vote on it now that we had a second?
Motion is on the floor.
I'll withdraw my motion at this time.
I don't even know what to say about this application. I realize this is a very accomplished board that has some very good schools currently running, but they applied for those schools a long time ago when the process was very, very, very different. And when I look back at Sugar Creek's initial application, 1998, we couldn't even pass the completeness test at this point. And I think that they came into this thinking that this was similar to what they'd done before, and the process has just changed drastically. This application, other than the fact that all the lines were filled in, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely incomplete. There's no ed plan. There's some promotional thing from the curriculum they're going to use. When asked about how they were going to handle at-risk students, they said they'd hire somebody who was talented. That's not what we're looking for. And so I would strongly suggest that if they intend to resubmit this application, that they go to the training that OCS offers, that they go in and look at some applications that have been approved recently, and that they redo this whole thing.
Agree, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I'd agree. Unless I missed it, I didn't even see any evidence of community
No.
interest.
No
It was
surveys.
a letter.
No.
Yeah, or nonprofits. I mean, it was.
No,
most of it was.
we presented at the school board meeting was it.
You're right.
Which in and of itself is kind of novel, but any other discussion on that?
I agree with your statements about their application. I noted that their lunch program was described in 2 sentences, and that's the type of response that was throughout, just wholly inadequate. They also had a little budgeting error, some number errors that I would want them to re-examine. They had 0 for marketing, 0 for classroom technology, 0 budget. So those were some concerns when you get into the specifics. But again, no concrete evidence that there was interest or support for the school, so they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I think they need to clarify too, exactly what free financial reform for excellence in education versus Unity Global Academy, because that was also very confusing in the application, because it doesn't sound like free is an EMO, but yet they were using it almost interchangeably sometimes. So I think that really needs to be clarified, who really is what is the name of the actual charter school?
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure out if it was a name change or if it was two entities, right?
And I was a little, I wasn't sure whether Free is running these other schools or just some of the people from Free are involved in writing this app. I was confused about that as well.
That is what I
Yeah, that was my assumption
got,
too.
but I don't know for sure. I would have asked that question.
Okay, well, I'm willing to take that motion now, Mr. Friend.
I'll make a motion that we do not move financial reform for excellence in education forward in the application cycle.
I second that.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approves.
Shelley Bullard,
Aye. Sorry.
thanks, Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so are we ready to start renewals then?
Yes, we can go straight on to renewals.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time today. Ms. McFadden will be presenting alongside me. I told her 10 o'clock. So we were going to get started with Water's Edge, who we already know has been financially cleared of not having any issues. And they will come before you to answer any questions that you may have about the standing of their school. Just a couple of reminders. Even before that, there were a lot of schools, and I told them I would make this statement. There were a lot of schools that planned to be in person before you because that was their preference. But unfortunately, there is an uptick happening with COVID throughout schools, and we asked them to please think about safety above anything else. And so for that reason, many of them will be virtual today rather than in person. A few reminders for today. The goal is to hear from each charter school that did not automatically qualify for a 10-year renewal. And this is the time for you to ask any clarifying questions that you may have. In addition, we will introduce each school prior to them coming before the podium, and Ms. McFadden will give you the latest financial update for each of those schools as they've reviewed over up until last week and over the weekend. Lastly, today you will vote to move recommendations forward to the State Board of Education. So after hearing from each school, your discussion will take place, and then you will make a decision as to how many years you want to provide in that term for their charter agreement. All right, so do you all have any questions for me before I call the school leadership for Watershed?
Actually, I do.
Sure.
I can't remember when this came up when we were talking about it, but legal reread the statute for 10 years for us.
Yes.
And that statute turned out to be a little different than how we've interpreted it. So I think it's important that we read that statute out loud because it does affect what we do.
Yes, ma'am. So 115C-218.6, Review and Renewal of Charters. The State Board of Education shall renew the operations of each charter school at least once prior to the expiration of its charter to ensure that the school is meeting the expected academic, financial, and governance standards. The State Board of Education shall renew the charter upon the request of the chartering entity for subsequent periods of 10 years unless one of the following applies. 1, the charter school has not provided financially sound audits for the immediately preceding 3 years. 2, the charter school's student academic outcomes for the immediately preceding 3 years have not been comparable to the academic outcomes of students in the local school administrative unit in which the charter school is located. And 3, the charter school is not, at the time of the request for renewal of the charter, substantially in compliance with state law, federal law, and school's own bylaws of the provisions set forth in its charter granted by the State Board of Education. If one of these conditions set forth in subdivisions of 1 through 3, then the State Board may renew the charter for a period of less than 10 years or not renew the charter.
Okay, so the thing that is critical about that we had not necessarily interpreted correctly before is that the only way you can get a 10-year charter is if you meet the requirements of statute and it's automatic. If you do not, according to the way that reads, we can renew for less than 10 years, but we do not have the option of renewing for 10 years for anyone who does not meet. So if you automatically meet the requirements, you're getting 10 years anyway. But anybody else cannot be renewed for 10. We'd have to renew for less than 10.
So we have previously considered the circumstances and might recommend a 10-year renewal even if one of those environments exists.
Exactly,
Okay.
but that is not an option.
Okay.
Going forward.
So we have to assume you get 10 years unless one of these 3 things apply.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if one does, you don't get it.
You don't get 10 years, right?
Yeah, we can't say, well, you're almost there, so, yeah.
And in the past, we've kind of done that.
Okay.
So we cannot do that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
I have a question about the second criterion. When you say comparable to the LEA, I was also thinking that we had used, or I'd read somewhere, there was a 5-point.
That's the
Yes,
criteria
ma'am.
that we use for comparability is 5 points.
Okay.
That's correct. So prior to Water's Edge coming before you to present, I just want to remind you of their standing as they were presented before. One of the reasons that they're here now is for the very reason that we read statute. The school is located in Corolla, North Carolina, and they're here. They'll be able to explain to you why they do not have comps, which is one of the reasons we were not able to keep them within the 10-year category, because they only had 2 out of the 3 years of exceeding the LEA or meeting those comparabilities. So as they come before you, they'll be able to answer those questions. Are there any further questions before I have them come up? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for having us, and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Megan Agresto. I'm the board president of the Corolla Education Foundation and the Water's Edge Village School. This is Sylvia Wolf. She's our teacher administrator. We were here together 10 years ago in this room, and we're glad to be back, actually. I think at that time, someone sitting in that corner was like, we're voting for you, but we don't think you're going to make it. We think this is a crazy option. And since that time, we've saved $50,000 a year and have $300,000 in the bank. And we'll talk a little about that in a second. But a couple things before we start, which is we did look at that state law, and 3 years proceeding does in fact include 2021. So before we get too strong on the 3 years proceeding and the written rule, let's remember 2017 is not 3 years proceeding from right now. We're just going to keep going on that. Thanks for having us.
The data, excuse me.
Yeah.
Data for 2021 doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Oh, we're just looking at the statute and the word it has, and we'd love you to look at our 2021 data, whether it counts or not, because it's beautiful.
Okay.
We're just going to throw that out.
Beautiful has an asterisk.
Anyway, point being, we're going to talk exactly about our numbers, your concerns about our numbers, our average daily membership, and what that meant in 2017 when we had only 17 kids total testing and the percent they carried. And how not only did we look at those 2017 numbers and make a serious plan, even though it would have only taken one child 3 questions on one math EOG to have us not standing here today. What's that? Oh no, I'm just summarizing. I'll give you more here in a second. I just need you to know where we're going. So, and we put a 30-page document together after those 2017 numbers to say, hey, we're better than this, let's go. And in that time, we as a school have grown from, well, we started out with 15 kids. We now have 44. We're on our way to meeting the minimum number of students that the Office of Charter Schools wants any charter school to have, which was 65 back in 2012. So let's just go there. That is our geographic isolation exemption that we put in our 2012 contract. Everybody can hear me, right? My voice carries. Do I have to worry about this mic?
Well, that will go to the live stream, so.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Okay, I'll try to do better. I'll try to cover that. Anyway, this is when Joel Medley was here, what we requested of him, and when our charter was granted, it was under this exemption for remote population.
Is that what I can do? I'm gonna have to do it for me.
Oh, you might have to. Thank you.
Yeah, just let me know when you want me to.
Nice to see you in person, by the way. Thank you for all your help over the years. This is just a little chart of our average daily membership, and you can see we started with 15 students. We're up to 43 this year. It makes a major difference when you're only testing 3rd grade up. We started off at K through 6. We're now at K through 8. We've stopped at K through 8 for a little while. We can keep going. Just a little explanation of why we were granted this geographic exemption. If you leave Corolla and drive south for a few minutes, you end up in another county. You end up in Duck. So the kids who were living in Corolla were going to be on a bus about 5 hours a day round trip to get to Currituck's mainland. You had to leave. You still have to leave if you're going to the high school at 5:30 in the morning. You're not allowed off the bus until school starts. and you better be on the bus to drop all the mainland kids off to get back through Dare County, past other public schools, to get back into Corolla. Our government essentially said, you're crazy to live here. We don't want to provide year-round services. This is a vacation town. We want occupancy tax. Please go away and stop bothering us. Whereas the educators, of course, on the mainland were like, that's a horrible thing to say. We support you having a charter school because no kid should spend that much time on the bus. So that's how we ended up getting the support of our LEA to open a very small charter school with the support of Big Guy as well. Thank you. We're looking at the 2017 numbers, so you'll see the year before it, when we tested even fewer students, we were above our LEA. It looks like, so I think you all have slightly different numbers than we have access to, but that is a 5-point difference for 2017 exactly.
That's because that's just one comparison compared to our closest.
Elementary school, that's right.
Strokes for elementary.
Dr. Cooper, what number were you giving me when you talked to me on the phone?
For your 17?
Yeah.
It looked like it was a minus 4.7.
Okay.
But that was county to school.
Okay. So that.
Or 6.7. Minus 6.7.
Okay.
6.7.
Okay, so right on the edge. And then you'll see that every year afterwards it was a dramatic increase. The difficulties with small numbers, in 2017 we tested 17 students. So we did better in ELA than we did in math, but it was math that brought us down, and truly, it was one of 3 students could have answered only 3 questions better. And and so then every year since then, we haven't been, that's an argument I know you all probably don't like to hear. We didn't want you to have such a small school. There was reason for it, and unfortunately, because we were so tiny right then.
Every individual student carried 6%.
Right, and so that was just one kid that changed that's one kid 3 years for our charter. That's a lot of weight there. Okay, go ahead. So, but nevertheless, immediately we got the scores back, and in July we put together a 30. Oh, I'm going to turn it over to Sylvia since she worked on it.
So,
If you can please speak into the mic, we have board members that are remote too, they'll need to vote on this.
certainly. So in seeing this and in realizing that this is a lot to put on a single child when they're carrying 3 and 4 and 5 and 6% percentage points, we went ahead and said, we know our kids are fantastic and very able. What's going on here? So we did a deep dive, and we put together, we did a whole analysis. We did a analysis of data preceding. We did a demographics. We don't really have enough of a cross section of data to do apply it in subcontexts and subgroups, but we looked at attendance, we looked at teacher turnover, we looked at everything that we had access to at the time, and we put together a plan and implemented it that year. Let me go ahead. What I have up here is the table of contents. Oh, can you go back? I'm sorry. And if you want to see the actual plan, it's bit.ly, the things up there, bit.ly /. I know you don't have a clickable link, and you guys know that bit.ly links are cap sensitive. Anyway, the whole document is there. Now you can go forward. Thank you. And here are the goals that we put together. Interestingly enough, I went to an NERESA conference recently, and the speaker, who was amazing, had a lot of these things. So it was very validating to be like, what can you do to make your scores better? And he said many of the same things. So it was fun to get to the same place organically. But our point is, we did the deep dive. We have moved forward. Please keep going. Just out of curiosity, do you guys have the ability to look through these slides independently, or do you only go with what I've got?
We have the ability to see them.
Okay, great. Then I'm going to go ahead and go through SMART Goal 3, and we can return to that if you have specific questions about it. Go ahead. But here's the trajectory that we've put together, and we started in 2013, and this is some of the data that we've looked at. But we're on the up and up. So you can see that 2017 math is really what pulled us down, and like I said, it's one particular student. Any one of those students that were right on the cusp, carrying 6% each, would have put us up and over the comps that you were looking for, right? And I know that you can't, the way that the law reads, it's the 3 preceding years, and that 2017, if we're looking for a loophole, 2017 isn't one of the 3 preceding years, and our trajectory there would indicate that we're on the up and up. And I know that 2021 data isn't available, but we would put our scores, in this particular instance, I'm confident that we would put our scores up to our local LEA and be above your requirement. As you can see, our line of average there is increasing. It's an upward trajectory, and we plan on continuing that. Also notable here is that we had gone ahead and put in, under our SMART goals, individual goals and steps to get there in the 3 preceding years, and we were well on our way to meeting those. Hashtag and then COVID. You can go ahead. And also interesting, we have this consideration that you're considering not granting a 10-year charter when we have statistics like this. In 2018, 2019, we're the second highest overall performing by your state report card in both Dare and Currituck County. And so, rah-rah, but also it feels punitive that you would put this amount of effort in, and then to come back and say, hey, we're going to count this data, the data that spurred you into an action plan, and by law technically isn't. I know COVID has thrown everything crazy, but isn't really what the law is asking you to look at. And then we're going to give you a 7 instead of 10. Go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So anyway, just if it helps, right, we put a plan together, it was successful, and the 6% for one student rule that nobody likes to hear in case we continue to make that argument in years ahead. Oh, excuse me, everybody online. We are putting together a capital campaign. Our committee met. We've got a summary of our case here. We're hoping to raise 1.2 mil. We've already raised about half of that already. We saved $300,000. We've got a $250,000 commitment already from just one donor that we went to speak to individually. We've only gone to speak to 3. Our idea is to keep our historic schoolhouse for our lower grades and then build a building right next door. Kids aren't having to cross the street. We're still in the village itself, and we can accommodate anywhere. By 2027, we hope to have 65 kids and grow all the way up to 70 to 80 students entirely. Just if it assuages any fear of having to see us again in 7 to 10 years with the argument we made about kids caring. You can go ahead, thank you. Okay, anyway, that's our whereas. You've heard all of those things, and we hope that you will consider granting us a 10-year charter. Any questions? You can go one more page if you want. It's our therefore.
I hear you.
Thank you.
And everything you're saying is absolutely positively true. I hear you. We got a law that we have to follow. We are not the people who have the opportunity to change that. That's not us. I think what you've done is remarkable. Just the fact that you managed to make this school work at all is pretty remarkable.
Thank you.
We were all really excited for you when you got this charter. And everything you're saying is real, but I got this law. And we aren't the people who get to change it.
Let's talk to Ashley. Maybe she wants to read it a little bit, that the word's 3 years.
And I don't even think we get to be able to be the people to interpret, to say, well, 17 really isn't 3 years, so it's the last 3 years of data, and that's the last 3 years of data we're allowed to use. So while I think you absolutely deserve a 10-year charter, I think we're probably going to have to recommend a 7. Anybody else have any comments?
I agree with you, Madam Chair.
They are to be commended.
Yes.
Thank
for
you.
the great successes they're seeing and for the hard work you're doing.
Thank you.
They're to be commended. It's just not within our hands to change the statute.
Can we ask a follow-up question to that? Because
Sure.
nobody likes to have something without an appeal, right? What's the next step for us then?
State board, but I don't know that you get to appeal there, but
Uh-huh.
From here, our recommendation goes to the state board.
Okay. Can we put a little asterisk on it? Like, if there were an appeal, we'd like to support it?
We'll notify
You
you if
guys
there's
are
an
a
appeal
trip.
process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't put words in our mouth.
But I see how you ended up getting your charter. Like, you guys are bona fide.
Can I ask one question, Ms.
Sure.
Turner? Can you explain, do you have a lottery system? Do you have more students applying than you had? Do you base your lottery on availability by grades or by total school?
Thank you. Yes, so we do have a lottery. Since year 2, we've had a waiting list. Essentially based on so what Currituck said to us is, we're not going to give you a principal or a subsection school at all until you show us 70 kids. We said, no one's ever going to stay in our town unless you give us a school. So we got a chicken and egg issue. We're going for it. Of course, so then you run into this thing. If you build it, then people will stay in the town they wanted to be in, either because they were lifeguards having kids, or because they worked in restaurants here, or because now with COVID, they want to work virtually and they might as well live at the beach and have fresh air. So now we have 43 students this year, and already on our lottery for next year, we have 31 students. So it's almost become the flip side of the problem, which is that we don't want people on the bus going to the mainland. But at this point, we've run into a little bit of a problem that we don't have enough space to accommodate all the people we want. We fill our K-1 classroom first in a lottery just to try to make sure that we're never going to have like a 6th grade that has 12 kids in it. So we have a smaller K-1 classroom. We fill that up first, and then we have a general lottery for all the other grades.
So
Great
being
to
able to
meet you.
add, being able to add the second building you'd be able to accommodate your entire community that wanted to go to school there.
Until more people move, right? It is a little bit of, we'll see how these remote workers during COVID pan out for the long run, because there's nothing to do in our town. Like, literally, you cannot go get a coffee in Corolla this morning if you wanted to. So a lot of people have big dreams of living at the beach, but aren't necessarily cut out for the desolate life that it is off season. But so we'll see how all that pans out. But because, of course, we cannot discriminate, we accept North Carolina students. We also have a big draw from Dare County because people are enthused by what we're doing. So that becomes a little bit of a juggle too. Then they have to be the people driving their
I was going to say, don't they have them that now they're the 5-hour riders?
No, because if you're not on a bus, you don't have to pick. If I just wanted to drive to our nearest elementary school, it would take me 66 minutes. Yes, because when you live in the middle of nowhere, you know exactly how many minutes it takes to get you anywhere. But the kids who come up from Duck, their parents will just drive them, and it's 20 minutes. So.
I wanted that Bitly address, and it went away before
Oh,
I got
sure.
past WEVS.
Go back a couple.
It's gross goals, both the G's are capitalized. It's
I'm sorry, what is it?
all capitals, WEPS, and then the words gross goals, and the G's are capital.
Thank you.
Because I do think that your process is worth sharing with other people. And it's obviously been successful. So I do think that's worth sharing with people.
Hindsight has allowed us to consider, there are some other considerations, but this is definitely the kickoff point and the foundation of where we said we're gonna make it happen.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, can we take a roll call vote, please? Oh, no, we do all this at the end.
Thank God, because we don't want to be in the room for it.
We do all this at the end.
Okay, well, thanks for having us.
Thank
We'll see you in 10 years.
It was nice to see you again. They're funny. They are really funny. They are so funny. They were like this when we applied. They were like hysterical. I remember that. We were also pulling for them because it was just cool.
The next school that you'll hear from is Emerald Bladen, and Ms. McFadden is here to give a financial update for that school, if any.
Just that we have received the financial statement audit. It was received on time. No issues were noted with either the financial analysis or the ADM analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.
And they should be online and prepared to give their presentation.
Good morning. This is Elizabeth Cole. I apologize we are not there in person, and we take the opportunity.
I'm sorry, can you speak up just a little bit, get a little bit closer to your microphone?
Yes, ma'am. Is that better?
Thank you, much better.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll start over. I apologize. This is Elizabeth Cole. I am the Executive Director at Emerald Bladen. We apologize we're not there in person. Thank you for this opportunity to do this virtually. I have with me in my office today the Dean of Academic Initiatives, which is Polly Hancock, our School Improvement Team Chairperson, Amanda Garner, and joining virtually from home is our Board Vice Chair, Sandra Lewis is online with us as well. If someone can switch to the next slide and go to the next slide. The first slide was our school-wide mission statement. Our presentation, we are being presented for a 7-year charter renewal as opposed to 10-year due to the lack of data. We only have valid testing data for the year of 2017-18, 2018-2019, and then of course COVID hit. Emerald Bladen opened the school year of 2017-2018. This next slide looks at some of the different ways that we try to meet the needs of students that are unique to the experience that they have in Bladen County schools. We also have a few children that come to us from Robinson County, Columbus County, and Whiteville City schools as well, those that are close to the border. We are inquiry-based learning. We do a lot with Project Learning Tree, a lot of trying to bring the outdoors inside, and take a lot of morning walks, do a lot of nature activities as well. And if we could go to the next slide, please. Obviously, we are in a situation with our test scores as well. Before I came, let me back up just a second. When the school opened in 2017-18, there was an executive director. Leadership changed in 2018-2019. They had their second executive director. I have been here since the year of COVID, since 2019-2020. So I have been the leader here now. This is the 3rd year consecutive. So in the beginning, there was leadership, I wouldn't say difficulty, but there was a change in leadership the first 2 years that the school was open. Having said that, recognizing the addition of COVID and not taking the test data from last year, we are working very hard to try to eliminate our TSI status. The TSI status came along with the 2018-2019 test scores, and our subgroups of concern are our African American males and also our exceptional children. We do have a high population of exceptional children. We are about 14% of our students here have an IEP. But this next slide explains some of the things that we're trying to do to bridge our gaps. We've incorporated a few new curriculum pieces to support the whole child, and actually for some of our discipline, we have incorporated whole brain teaching. We are K-8. Our charter was written and approved to go K-12. We actually, the second year that I was here last year, we did have 9th grade. After looking at the sustainability of the programming and what we could offer for the high school students and the lack of interest in the high school, we dropped back this past year, and now we are currently only a K-8 school. We are, like I said, we are using the whole brain teaching. We have purchased new math curriculum, and we're looking at the social emotional needs as well. Our school has also invested in RTI Stored, a data storehouse that's helping us store a lot of data, individual data for our students, where we are trying to meet the needs. We actually can hold in RTI Stored attendance records, academic records, social, emotional, and behavioral issues as well. Our school does a great job with the student assistance team, where we bring students before the teacher, counselor, and our Dean of Academic Initiatives. We initially meet on students, trying to target areas of need. And then, of course, we involve the parents. Once we try to identify what some of the strengths and weaknesses are, we bring them in and put them on board as well, so that we can try to move those students forward. And you can advance to the next slide. This year, recognizing, of course, the learning gaps that COVID has presented, we actually have created a schedule where a lot of our exploration teachers, you'll see the highlighted in yellow, where they have specific intervention groups. They team with the grade levels and have specific plans for students to provide these interventions, working on certain content standards trying to move them forward and push them along as well. And then the next slide, the last slide. Of the data that does count, that we do have on record in 2017, 2018, you see that the performance grade is a C. The school was considered not to have met growth the first year that they were open. However, on the actual presentation that was presented with our academic achievement, we did exceed our local district with our test scores, both in 2017, 2018, and in 2018, 2019. In 2018, 2019, you can see that the performance grade was a C of a score of 63. But we are actively, of course, working to try to do what we can to put things in place so that our data will hold steady and that we will show that improvement along the way. I can tell you that with enrollment, based on when the charter was written and what projected enrollment is, we have fallen slightly short of enrollment, and that has been impacted by COVID. A lot of the students that we lost last year and some that we've lost this year have opted the homeschool option or have gone to private schools. We were last year able to stay open more than our local public school was. We had K-5 was able to attend 4 days per week last year in October, where a lot of our local school districts did not start 4 days of instruction for K-5 until last March. So we're very confident, of course, that we were able to offer that face-to-face instruction. Our middle school and high school last year, of course, we followed the state plan and they could not return 4 days a week until March as well. But this year, of course, we are moving forward and have been able to stay open and just hope that the results of the pandemic will leave soon so that our enrollment will increase. Right now, our lottery, we do have 100 students. Our lottery is open to K-8, of course. And we open slots based on availability and grade levels. When the school first opened, there were 2 grade levels for every grade. And currently, with the exception of kindergarten and first grade, we have 4 homerooms of every grade level, 2nd through 8th grade. Kindergarten and first grade are both full with 3 classes per grade level. So hopefully, post-pandemic, we're going to see our enrollment increase as well. And I'll take any questions if there are any questions.
Any questions from the board regarding Emerald Bladen? I'm going to start to sound like a broken record, but we've got the same situation here. True, they don't have that third-year data. They have comparability 2 out of 3 years. They obviously have no financial issues and no significant compliance. According to the legislation, we can't go to 10, so 7, it falls clearly in a 7. And so that I don't have to say that 25,000 times for everybody who would love to be a 10, if you don't meet the requirements of the law, 10's not up for discussion. We've got some flexibility below 10, but asking us for 10 is just, you can have the right to ask. We're just going to say the same thing over and over and over.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am, we understand.
Can I get a motion on Emerald Bladen?
We're gonna do it all.
Oh, that's right. Why do I keep doing that? Why do I keep
You're just
doing
ready.
that?
That's okay.
Just for a second. We made a decision. Vote. We made a decision. Vote. Okay.
Now we won't say that 10,000.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that 10,000 times either. Okay, so we're ready for the next school. Thank you, Emerald Bladen.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The next school that you have coming before you is Guilford Preparatory Academy. And same situation, although it's in the reverse. So where the comps were met for Emerald Bladen, you have exceeding growth 2 out of the 3 years for Guilford Preparatory Academy.
And for a financial update, we have received the FY21 audit report. We do not have any financial compliance issues, nor have we had any for the last 5 years either, just to add.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Alton Woods. I am the board chair for Guilford Prep Academy, and you can advance to the next slide as I introduce This morning, as I perused the participant list, I believe all of our board members are present, though only a couple of us will speak to you this morning unless there's specific questions. We're happy to be here. Thank you for making this virtual option available to us. And yes, we understand that 10 is not on the table, so I'll save you from having to repeat that one this morning.
Thank you so much.
We are excited to talk to you about some of the things that are happening in our school, and we're really excited about them. Just as a quick recap, pre-COVID, as we look back 17, 18, and 19 school years, our grade level proficiency was pointed in the right direction. 8-point difference, 6-point difference, 4-point difference. So you kind of see the arrow going in the right direction. We'll talk to you today a little bit around some of the things that we're super excited about, which is the slide right here. We'll also share some of our activities in the space of boys of color and some other post-pandemic recovery items that we'd like to share. So really quickly, before I turn it over to Mrs. Bates and our principal, we have seen some pretty significant growth from an enrollment perspective. In the data presented in December, I think our ADM was at 289. This year, we opened at 482, so pretty significant growth and great interest in the community for our school. We also just moved into our new facility as well, and the growth we saw while we were still really packed into a church facility. So we believe that the new facility will continue to explode our growth. In fact, since we moved in this year, even as the school years progressed, we've had multiple families drop by to visit the building and express interest in us going forward. So we're super excited about it. It's given us the opportunity to, again, move out of this church structure and into a more contemporary building that gives us labs, foreign language, music rooms, a bunch of other things that we think can create a much more holistic experience for our students. One of the things that we also tackled was really our device to student ratio. Several years back, that was an area we noted as an opportunity to improve. While COVID and virtual learning pushed that, I'm happy to say that that's something that we were solving even pre-COVID. And now we're really at a place where our device to student ratio is less than 1-to-1, and we're pretty excited about it as well. And we will be the first middle school in Guilford County, I dare say North Carolina, but Guilford County as well, to offer esports, which now can capitalize on some of the video gaming activities that our current population is interested in, but put an educational spin to it so that we can get them maybe developing some more skills instead of just playing Madden and Fortnite. So we're pretty excited about that as well. And then lastly, on our financials, for those of you who have been on the board and connected with us in years past, several years ago, that was an area we put a lot of effort into. And so we've improved our net financial position by 38% and sit right around 70 days cash on hand. So we're super excited about those accomplishments that I wanted to share with the board. And then I'll kick it over to Mrs. Bateson to talk to us around our emphasis on boys of color.
Good morning. My name is Robin Bateson. As our board chair had mentioned, I am serving as the principal at Guilford Preparatory Academy. One of our focuses of a big initiative for us in this past year on into this year has been focusing on our boys of color. We had noticed in previous years that they were not performing at the same level as our girls on both EOGs as well as on when we rewarded students for the honor roll. So we made that a focus for us. They were not, especially our middle school boys, once they hit 4th grade, many less boys were getting on our honor roll. So what we did is we were rewarded the Access Grant, which helped us tremendously with making this initiative. We had professional development, engaging boys of color by Dr. Chance W. Lewis, as well as becoming the educator they need. And we just really made that a focus for our teachers and our students throughout the entire school year on into this year. We changed our lesson plan template to include strategies that we knew would help our boys. And we were able to reverse the gap or close the gap between our boys and girls. If you look at the data on the right side of the screen, our boys had a 22 gap in proficiency in reading on the EOGs, in math 11.7 gap, and in science a 22.9 gap. based on our benchmarks that we took at the end of the year, the gap got smaller in reading to a 9-point gap, smaller in math to an 8-point gap, and then reversed in science to where our boys were outperforming our girls. And that rings true. That rings true in our last EOG data as well, with our gaps closing. That's not to say we left the girls out. We just knew that they were the ones that were struggling the most in our school. And if you could move to the next slide. Okay, so some of the things that we have been doing at our school, we have purchased all new curriculum to we wanted our K through 8 students to see and hear the same terminology. We have Eureka Math, K through 8. We've purchased a social studies curriculum called TCI. Foundations has been implemented in our kindergarten through 3rd grade classes. In K through 8, we purchased Wit and Wisdom so that our students could have hands-on experience with actual chapter books and picture books with high-level words and engagement. We've noticed with our middle school students that the boys especially seem to really gravitate towards having those books in their hands, not just a textbook. Discovery Education has been purchased for science, and then we have tried to increase our encore classes for our middle school students. We've added such classes as radio broadcasting, teacher cadet, things that will help prepare our students for their future. We've also, if you look at the middle school-wide literacy, vocabulary has been implemented within our classes that is used frequently with our students to address some of our low scores in the area of vocabulary. Read to Achieve, in order to address those needs, we've implemented iReady. That gives us the data that we need to submit to the state for our iReady, or for our Read to Achieve legislation. And then I'm going to stop right here and turn it over to Dr. Oliver, who is a board member.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mrs. Bateson. The board got really involved in working closely with the leadership staff at our school to think about what all of our post-pandemic measures and strategies and goals would be. So we were very intentional about all of the 4 things on the screen, not just new curriculum for our students, but training for the teachers to implement that curriculum and bringing on specialists to ensure fidelity of that implementation, and making writing across the curriculum or school-wide literacy an effort in every classroom. So we're pushing literacy across all content areas and including a cultural responsiveness approach, making sure that our teachers understand culturally responsive pedagogy, and so that our students are reading about themselves, their families, their culture, their heritage, and addressing material that they're familiar with and can relate to. We have 5 staff in particular who most of their day is dedicated to working with students in small groups around reading and literacy, where children read out loud to them. They talk about, words that they don't understand or what they mean. The teachers choose literature based on the new curriculum we bought that is relevant to those students' interests and experiences. We also offer after-school care, not just for struggling parents, but for struggling students, but parents who also want to ensure that their children have that extra time in an environment where they're safe and where the teachers there are already familiar with them. So our own staff of teachers provide the after-school care and a program for our students. And everything you see on the screen at the bottom of a list that has an asterisk is what we're implementing beginning this month. So we did sit down to think about where we've come so far this year in our post-pandemic efforts and what needs to happen next. So 2 of the things that we're instituting are after-school tutorials. Every teacher will stay after school at least once a day so that their own students can get remediation and support. But we're also implementing a school-wide tutorial program for students to get more emphasis in areas where they may be struggling or may have a greater emphasis. School-wide professional development has also been a target area for us as recovery during the pandemic. Our teachers have attended virtual conferences about math. You've heard us say a lot about literacy, but of course we have to push math instruction post-pandemic and deal with the learning lag that we've seen from our iReady data. Teachers are able to use those assessments to create their own formative assessments so that they can let lesson planning be driven by what the data says about where students are and not just what they had planned to teach them. And that helps us to ensure mastery and get the scores up. We do have weekly grade level professional learning communities, so the teachers meet and talk about their standards and as well as standards of practice. They're able to talk specifically about the students they know on their grade level team and how they can work together to provide differentiated instruction. One of the things board members are all excited about, because we really have a goal to increase the licensure status of people working in our building. So we have a praxis test prep peer group at the school for teachers on our staff who have completed all their coursework and licensure requirements but have been struggling to pass the national teacher exam. So we have a team working with them to help them study and prepare and plan for how to pass the praxis exam. We're already celebrating a teacher we had on staff long term who went back to school, finished all of her coursework, just completed the EdTPA portfolio, and will be getting her licensure this semester as well. We have some teachers who are from other states, and we want to make sure that they go through the reciprocity process. So we're paying attention to that, because when teachers know more, our students learn more. We've already begun to implement restorative practices. We're not at the granular level yet, just introductory, but teachers are already practicing circle groups with students and morning meetings, because that's a huge emphasis for us this semester, both from a behavior and self-management perspective, as well as changing the culture of our school so that both teachers and staff take ownership of our way of being. I want to pause here before I talk about the specialist and let Mrs. Bateson take 2 minutes to tell you all about this coming Friday.
So this Friday, we have a work day approaching, and we are having peer PD sessions where teachers who are experts in their specific areas will be presenting to the rest of the staff, so that we can get PD amongst ourselves. Stuff like restorative practices from our behavior specialist, how to make creative and effective stations in math and reading guided instructional time from our reading and our math coaches. Another one would be, again, focusing back on engaging boys of color and using those strategies within your classrooms. If you need a little refresher, one of our staff members who's an expert at that will be teaching the rest of the staff. So there's various options that the staff will get to choose from, where they'll be learning from their peers.
Thank you, Mrs. Bateson. We were very intentional about this because all of the research says that in order to really implement change in a school with fidelity, teachers have to work together and learn together. So we aren't doing the, drive-ins where we pay some person to come from far away to tell our teachers what they know. We really want them to share successes with each other and help each other in areas of weakness in their teacher practice. And of course, we're monitoring that as leadership. The last piece talks about our intentionality around getting the right staff in the building. And so we have hired a behavior specialist, which Mrs. Bateson just mentioned. We particularly chose one of our stronger candidates came from a long-term high school background, and we felt that him both having that experience, being a father and grandfather, and really and having an athletic coaching background, all of that was intentional. It goes with our emphasis on boys of color, understanding our community, having children who see teachers that look like them, and he doesn't just wait for a child to be in trouble. He's working with teachers about, when is the right time to send a child out of class and how to use restorative practices to keep them in the room. But he's also doing rounds to classes at our middle school where he's taking 15 to 20 minutes to provide instruction around self-management and making good choices with students in the classroom. This has been critical post-pandemic because as with other charter schools, I'm sure, and not just charter schools, there's just been a challenge bringing students back into certain expectations of behavior. The second piece, of course, is having a reading specialist to help facilitate curriculum and promote the school-wide literacy effort. We also have hired a math coach who does two critical things for our school: work with students in small groups, but work with the teachers of the struggling students to make sure there's a dotted line between what we expect students be able to do and ensuring that teachers are able to teach in a way that they best learn. One of the things we're really excited about is we have an all-hands-on-deck media specialist that doesn't wait for students to ask about good books to read. She certainly has that information, but she makes rounds in the school as well, just like our behavior specialist and math coach, and she's working primarily on social emotional learning, conflict management, making good choices, as I said before. We could tell you tear-jerking stories about self-esteem and how she's had students to talk about what they like about themselves and how students at all grade levels had absolutely nothing to say. So she's taking that on almost as a media specialist / guidance counselor / resident nurturing mom role, but it has made a huge impact post-pandemic, particularly for some of our students who don't get this at home, and we know it. We also have a very strong program partnership with the local law enforcement, and we have a police officer in our school every day, of course, for safety and protection, but they are involved. They're getting to know students' names and teachers. They walk around the building. Children know them, and we have one in particular, a Black female officer who comes every Wednesday and does a conflict resolution program with the girls in partnership with our staff. So when you heard Mrs. Bateson say earlier, we're focusing on improvement among Black boys, we certainly aren't leaving the girls out. We are familiar with all of the push-out research that shows over the last 10 years we've put so much emphasis on literacy and behavior for Black males that there's been an uptick in negative behavior and learning loss for girls. So we're making both of those a priority. And certainly last but not least, we're totally revising our school leadership team into a school improvement problem-solving group that includes both leadership staff, classroom teachers or teacher leaders, and non-instructional staff. And they are meeting about not just problems, but opportunities in the building that we, all of us as a team, along with some of the board members, can take in an effort to really, really improve school climate and culture. So that's where we are right now, and that's what our emphasis is this semester. Back to you, Mr. Woods.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bateson and Dr. Kathy. So I guess at this point, we'll take any questions or comments from the board.
Any questions, comments?
I have a question about your academic emphasis on boys of color with your outcome data. Not to diminish at all the great gains that were made, but I'm just interested in knowing if the girls maintained their scores or even improved. No scores were provided, just the percentage point in the gap. Do you happen to know that data?
It's difficult to tell. We're comparing data from pre-COVID to COVID data. So it's rather difficult to tell. I'm hoping this year, since we are back in school, we can determine that. It looks like they have held, well, all the scores have dropped. I think the girls have held steady, if that makes sense.
That's good to know. Yes, sometimes the gap can close because, the leading group decreased in scores, and that closes the gap as well. Your second and third grade boys are really to be commended with that honor roll even prior to the interventions. Those are some strong numbers.
Yes.
But very good emphasis, very good work.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Can I ask again, I guess, a clarifying question on the rule? Because when I look at the chart that you put up, so the last, it exceeded, met, exceeded, met. So but that's actually not part of this rule. The rule is about the comparison to the LEA.
Well, it's in some cases it's an or. It can be an or situation. So at 7 years, comparable to the LEA 2 out of 3, or exceeded growth 2 out of 3.
Okay,
Correct.
but the reason, so I guess my question is, the reason this school is not getting 10 is because there is 1 year that they were below the LEA 2018-19 in grade level proficiency.
So there were 2 years that the school did not meet comparability, and 2 out of the 3. They did meet comparability the last year, which was 2018-19, but where they qualified for the 7 was because 2 out of the 3 years immediately preceding 3 years, they exceeded growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they ended up in the 7 year. I really wish, because this school has put in a lot of work, but like we said, we have to go strictly by the statute, which is why we placed them in the 7 year, because they did not have comps 3 out of 3 to meet that qualification.
So there is that, I know it's this.
You're right.
This
It's
is what's keeping
yes,
them
sir.
from being a 10-year.
That's correct.
Right,
Okay.
or if they had
Exceeded 3
growth in
years.
17, 18, they could have been a 10-year.
Got it.
So the options are 3 years of exceeded or comparability.
Yes. I know.
No,
Any other
I'm
questions?
helping, it's helping me process this, and it goes back to a discussion I think we had on, now I can't even remember what the issue was, and then this is really going down a rabbit hole, but is comparing a charter school to their LEA
Yes.
the appropriate measure, particularly when you're in a really big school district.
Exactly.
And-
Which is why growth is the
Yeah.
alternative.
Okay.
Did I
For the
answer your
10 year,
questions,
it's
or you
not.
have further questions about?
Well, for a 10-year, you could, if you exceeded for 3 years, even if you're not comparable, you could still get a 10. But you had to have exceeded for 3
Exceeded.
years, not met.
Without a break, it had to be the immediately preceding.
All of it
3
is the
years.
immediate preceding 3
So
years.
that's not in the statute we read at the beginning of this session, right?
Yeah, no, it was.
No, it's actually not in.
It's not in
It's
that
not
statute
written
we
this
read.
way.
So exceeded, it does not, it's not in the
It
statute.
says the
not
charter
referenced.
school's academic outcomes for the immediately preceding 3 years have not been comparable to academic outcomes of students in the local LEA. It doesn't mention anything
Thing
about
about growth.
That was put in the guidelines, but it's not in the statute.
Right.
Right.
So that's within your guidelines.
But our guidelines can't be different than the law. Well, that's the pitch.
But in this case, I mean, it's totally clear because of comparability, so you're not in a position where you're having to choose. It's really plain, and I will tell you, after seeing this school renew just a few years ago, leaps and bounds, so congratulations to them on doing a great job. But this is where they've fallen, and they fully understood in all of our discussions as to where they fell within statute, so. Yeah. I know. Imagine us around the table trying to figure it out.
So I hesitate to even ask, but I'm going to ask. Like, if I go back to the last year's cycle,
Yeah, though we did it wrong.
did we give schools 10 years that probably?
Yeah.
But then the state board then signed off on that too.
Yeah. But yeah,
Okay.
no, under this explanation, some of the people that got 10 last year shouldn't have gotten 10, but too late now.
Maybe in my school, I don't know.
No, it wasn't your school. I can vouch for that. It was not your school. I did those numbers. All right, well, are you ready to hear from the next school?
Please.
Okay. So we have coming before you, and the board is actually present here today, and it's College Preparatory and Leadership Academy. They will come before you. This school, and I want to make sure that we're clear, we do have some schools that are continually low performing. This school is not continually low performing. They do have a low performing tag from 3 years ago, but they have exceeded, met, and exceeded. And they also had comps within 2 years, which is why they fell into the 5-year category and not the 3-year. Because again, they're not continually low performing. Okay? Just want to make that clear. Do you have any questions before we do the
can
financial?
you say, this is getting so confusing. Can
Yes.
you say that for me again, please?
Yes, ma'am. So College Preparatory and Leadership Academy, they have, so there's a downward trajectory because the school has gone from a C to a D. However, out of the 3, so when we're looking at the immediately preceding 3 years, they exceeded and met growth for 2 out of those 3. They did not exceed 2 years, but they did exceed and meet. They did meet comps 2 out of the last 3 preceding years, but because of the low performing tag, that stood in as being compliance. But they're not continually low performing, which is why they are not in the 3-year category with schools that would have had the continually low performing distinction.
Okay, thank
Do I
you.
need to go back over any of that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. McFadden?
We have received the financial statement audit for fiscal year 21, and going back, looking at 5 years, we have had no financial concerns or issues with the school.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. Johnson. I am here as the co-founder and superintendent of schools for the College Preparatory and Leadership Academy. We're at the point we produce future college graduates who are dynamic student leaders with exceptional intelligence and a strong sense of who they are and what they can achieve. I have part of my school board here. I have a board advisor and friend of the point here. We also have board members who are on the call with us. I will begin by saying that when we opened 10 years ago, we were the first charter school in our city to offer transportation to students, to offer meals for students. We continue to be the only charter school in our city of Jamestown High Point to offer transportation for students and meals for students. For about 15 years, families in our community could not get into the school, could not have access to the school or participate in the charter movement because access was blocked to their families. When we opened, we were able to serve our scholars, moving from about 90 students to now 140 students. We serve scholars in High Point, Jamestown, Greensboro, Thomasville, Archdale, Reedsville, and surrounding areas. We are here today because I have an ask. I have an ask of the Charter School Advisory Board, and that ask is for a long-term commitment to our school and to the work that we are doing for our particular students. We have commitments from our families, we have commitments from our students, we have commitments from our staff, we have commitments from High Point University, we have commitments from North Carolina A&T State University, we have commitments from our city councilman, we have commitments from our commissioner, we have commitments from our state board representative, and we have commitments from the Congdon Family Foundation, which is a financial backer of our school. We also have commitments from the investors who supported our bond most recently. So I am asking for you to join us in committing to our scholars and to our school. As you will see with the presentation that was presented, I was really shocked when I received the email that stated that we only received a 5-year renewal when it seems like we are being penalized 5 years for 1 year of reduced data. So I am going to share with you why that recommendation needs to be reconsidered. So if we will bring up, the presentation is up there, thank you. We will start with no significant compliance issues, of course. We don't have any significant compliance issues. Financially sound audits, I do want to just put this on record for 9 years, because since our school was open, you can go back and look at every single financial audit and you will find no findings. We have a current strong fund balance, which our CFO will speak about today. Our academic outcomes have been comparable to comparable schools in our LEA for the last 3 years, and I will break that down for you all today. Our LEA is Guilford County. However, we are in High Point, Jamestown, and so I'm going to share with you the comparability to the schools in our city, not to the schools across 30 minutes across town from us, to the schools in our city. CPLA compared to Guilford County schools.
This is on the data report card that you all received, where it says the 2 out of 3. Now, we are comparable to the county 2 out of 3. Just like the 2 schools who came before you, we are comparable 2 out of 3 of those years. Just like the 2 other schools who came. But if you look at the bottom of the data sheet, and there's some reason that is included in this information, the bottom of the data sheet, if you'll bring that back up for me, if you don't mind. The bottom of the data sheet that was presented to us and that's presented to you at the bottom of student subgroup performance. And you will see that our school, which is predominantly African American, those are the students who have chosen to come to our campus because they couldn't get into the other school. And we provide them transportation and meals. That we outperform the county for economically disadvantaged students. The county is 40.7, we are 44.2. Students with disabilities, the county is 19.6, we are 22.3. For Black students, there's no American Indian or Asian listed because we didn't have enough in that subgroup. For Black students, the county is 40.7, we are 46.7. We outperform the state and the county. The state and the county for educating Black students, which is predominantly our school. For Hispanic students, the county is 48.0, 57.4. We outperform them as well. For 2 or more races, the county is 58.8 and we're 53.8. So 3, let's at 1, 2, 3 is at 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 areas, we outperform the county in the students we educate. So if you compare the county to the students who are actually in our school, we outperform them in the year that's in question. That year in question is 2018-2019. But if you see at the bottom, we outperform them in the students we actually educate. We don't have a cohort of American Indian, Asian, or white students. So that means those students we educate, compared to the county, we outperform them in 4 out of 5 areas for comparability. So if you were to discuss with a statistician, well, where is that, how do we close that gap there? Well, it may be because we don't have those other subgroups. So essentially, we're being punished for not having those subgroups in our school. But when the subgroups that we do have, we outperform the county. And that information is listed on the data sheet used to evaluate our school. So we want that information to be considered when you're looking at that 2018 year where there was a drop, and I'm going to go through the drop because, I'm into data, so I know what happened. We're going to go through the drop. But if you still look at who we educate, we outperform the county. So what does this mean in our LEA? In our LEA, if you're looking for a school to educate your African American student, your economically disadvantaged student, the students who could not get into the other charter school, we outperform the county in doing that. So that's 2018-2019. That's the year in question. So let's move on to the next slide. Thank you. Well, we can go back. Go back. Thank you. So let's pull up the 2018-2019 data. 2018-2019 data. And you will see that I have listed here the schools in our city. Now, if I were to list all the schools in our LEA, you would have about 50 schools on there. So in our city, I've listed the schools, and the schools who educate, that why there means they're Title I schools, at economically disadvantaged students. This is 2018-2019. This is what is in debate this particular year. And of course, I wasn't happy with this year, but let me show you what it says. 2018-2019, we fall right there in the middle of the county for those Title I schools, right there in the middle of the county. But if you move over to the end, you will see for academic achievement, for reading and math, EOGs and EOCs, we are second. I'm looking at it from a distance.
We're your second. And then if you move over to the right further for science, there's only 4 other schools ahead of us. Some of them are strictly high schools where we are K-12. So that's for the year end that we are, discussing, the 2018-2019. Our EOGs and our EOCs came in second. And with science, fourth. So let's move to 2017-2018. Because 2017 and 2018 was the height of the data that's presented. And that was the year where we were top 5 in growth for the state out of all schools. 93.3 in growth for that year. Steady educating and pushing this population to achieve higher. 17-18, this is the year prior. I want to show you what happened. And so when you are growing from 90 students to, at that time we were probably about 600, and you're pulling from an LEA with so many low-performing schools, we know that it takes us at least 2 years to catch them up. And so that's where you see this growth up to, I believe that achievement score was a 66 that year, 4 points away from a B. And if you continue to enroll, because we have a wait list, and you bring in more students, there may be a drop at some point, and then you got to build them back up. But we were at 93.3 growth, and this is where we ranked in 2017, 2018 in our city for the students that we educate.
Do you only educate kids from your city?
In our city and surrounding cities, we educate Black students, economically disadvantaged, and
Right, but all the children in your school are only come from your city.
no. I could have put Thomasville on there. I could have put Reedsville on there. I could have put Thomasville, Reedsville, Lexington on there, and they would probably fall under the Title I as well. Okay, and so, but however, the comparability is not outside because they're in another county. Those students were from another county, so that's why it's the ones who are in our city, in our county. Okay, and so that's where our school fell for the 2017-2018. So it seems like a significant drop. It was a drop that next school year, but we're going to go in to talk about what happened. Yes, right there. So the next year, that 2018-2019, even though we had that drop there, but we still remained right in the middle, and our African American, economically disadvantaged students with disabilities outperformed the county. You will see that the College Preparatory and Leadership Academy, and this all comes from the DPI website, we outperformed the county, GCS, Guilford County Schools, in the biology EOC. We outperformed them in the English 2 that same year. Math 3, we did not. This was the first year where Math 3 was an EOC. It takes us about 2 to 3 years after having them 1 year for a test to get these students ready. That was the first year for the Math 3 EOC, and that was our first year for ACT. Because when we opened the school, we didn't start with K-12, we built on it. And so we're gradually building students up to it. So that was our first year for juniors taking Math 3 and for juniors taking the ACT. But we outperformed the county in biology, English 2, and Math 1. We outperformed the state in biology. We outperformed the state in English 2, and we outperformed the state in Math 1. In the same year that's in question.
So all the numbers for 2018 that are in question, we outperformed the state and the county, except for when they total it all up and we don't have the subgroup for white students or Asian students or American Indian students. But the students we actually educate, we outperform the state and the county. So if we drop down, you will see our read to achieve for 2018-2019. And yeah, there's something covering it up. And you'll see that we outperformed the state and we outperformed the county for our read to achieve for 2018 and 2019. So we'll keep going. So the last part of our school to be added on was our high school. That was the last part because we wanted smart growth and we build it slowly. And we currently have 100% graduation rate, 3 graduation classes with commendation from the Accountability Office for how we track our data and how we justify and how we keep our records to justify the 100% graduation rate. However, that's not included in our school because I've spent, with our Regional Accountability Office, about 3 months nudging them and nagging them. How is this calculating? I'm not understanding how this is calculating. And I was told, you don't get credit for your graduation rate because you don't have 30 seniors just yet. Okay, we will because we're growing them. We have 15 and then we'll add 20, 25, and then you grow them each year. The last 2 years, 64% of our seniors have earned college credits. Our graduates have earned college credits. We participate in the dual enrollment program. 100% of our graduates are in college, the military, starting businesses, actively, for that typo, actively employed. And those are some of the universities they have been accepted into. We'll keep going. Lastly, I want to share with you letters of support from our community, from our North Carolina General Assembly, Representative Cecil Brockman, the Earl and Catherine Congdon Family Foundation, the Executive Director, Megan Oglesby. You can read their letters of support and how they have committed to our school. In particular, the Congdon Foundation is a major donor philanthropist in High Point and surrounding areas and in North Carolina who has committed through the years. This is totaling over $500,000 to our school and have committed to support our teachers who are part of a Prepare program at High Point University. Every year, we get to choose 5 teachers to get a master's in teaching for free at High Point University with 4 years commitment to our school. We received a grant of $250,000 without applying for it. They just came to our school. We didn't have to apply because they see what we are doing in the city. From Guilford County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Carvina Foster. From the city of High Point, Cyril Jefferson. We have commitment. And so my ask of you is a commitment to our school because we have the committed staff, we have the committed universities, we have the committed funders, we have the committed students and families, and we have the data to show that we are outperforming the county with the children that we educate. In that questionable year of 18-19, yes, there was a drop. When you total it all up together, but when you break it down on the data that was presented to us and to you, you'll see that 4 out of 5 areas, we exceed the county and the state. And in high school EOCs, we again exceed the county. So I'm going to turn it over to our board members. All of our board members are here except for one who had a medical emergency, but all of them are here. And we've never come before you before. Out of 10 years, we've never had any issues. So I hope that you will take the time to hear from them.
Okay, we can't hear from all of them. So we'd love to hear from them, just we can't hear from all of them.
We will start now with our board member. We will start with our CFO Financials.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Now,
Good morning.
I'll be very brief because I don't think we have any questions about our financials, but I'll certainly entertain them if we do. We have had clean audits for all 9 years that we have been audited. We have a very healthy fund balance. I also want to say, as a co-founder of the school, along with Dr. Johnson, why this decision is a big deal for our school. Why it's more than just, 5 years, come back in 5 years, go through the process, you'll be fine. The reason this matters is because we have institutions, we have investors, we have universities and foundations that have made and are looking to continue to make a long-term commitment to the College Preparatory and Leadership Academy. Of course, and even when we went through our bond financing, they knew we were up for, that was in 2020. They knew we were up for renewal in a year and a half. And so they asked to speak to Mr. Machado about what would be the, whether we would be a going concern, whether there was any concern from the Office of Charter Schools that we wouldn't be around. And we appreciated, he gave us a very strong recommendation, indicated that we, nothing else changed, we would likely be up for a 10-year renewal. And we have not had any other actionable testing and certainly any other compliance issues since that time. But the reason this matters is because they are looking to this body and to the state board as the ones who have the insight as to whether this school is viable and will continue and will be worthy and will be in existence for them to have a long-term commitment and investment and attach their name and their reputations to. So this matters. This is important to us. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and ask very seriously that you reconsider this recommendation. Thank you. Our board chair, Mr. Kevin Greer, is going to speak via telephone.
Hey, good morning, everyone. As Reverend Johnson indicated, my name is Kevin Greer. Been affiliated with the school since its inception. I've been serving as the board chair for the last 4 years. Dr. Johnson has already presented the facts, and so I'm not going to restate the facts. What I do want to speak to, and I think this is important, it's important for each charter school, and I think it's equally important for DPI too as well. As policies, guidelines are developed, it should be very clear what the requirements are. There shouldn't be any ambiguity or any subjectivity to it. I do recall when we were first applying for our charter that there was a rubric that was very detailed and listed out and said, here's absolutely without a shadow of a doubt what you have to do in order to be awarded your charter. Unfortunately for the renewal process, that's not the same. There does appear to be some ambiguity, some subjectivity, even by the admission of this review panel. As you talked about how you've reviewed in the past and how you've interpreted in the past. Unfortunately, that becomes punitive for the schools who are moving along in the point, including the point, as we are trying to make sure that we are in adherence and doing those things. In my 35 plus years in the financial industry, working for two major banks with two of the top 6 major banks, I've seen and understand the importance of policy, of guidelines, of them being clear, them being measurable, them being objective. And when that doesn't happen, it opens institutions up to being questioned about, well, how did we get to this point, and that kind of thing. Dr. Johnson has shown you that for the population of students that we educate, that we've been comparable over the last 3 years that this review board is looking at. And so I am asking that the review panel go back and reevaluate their decision from a 5-year renewal to a 10-year renewal. I'm not asking you to violate the law in any circumstance. I'm asking you to look at the spirit of the law when it talks about comparable to your LEA, and we can't be comparable to a student population that we don't have. So for the student population that we do have, we are very much comparable. That would be making sure that you are being objective, that you're being transparent, and that you are applying the law as it should be, and not just with a broad brush stroke. I will say this, and it's just because it's a true statement, that when there is subjectivity, when there's variation, that there are populations of people in this country that seem to come out on the short end of the stick. And we don't want that to happen for the point or anyone else. We want to make sure that everything is equitable based off of the data itself. And so with that, I'm not going to belabor the point, but I do want the board to go back and to look at the actual subgroup data points. Reverend Johnson did make mention to the meeting with the bond investors and Mr. Machado being there. And he even himself called out how we outperformed in all of the subgroups in the county, and did say that it would probably be the recommendation for us to have a 10-year renewal. And he said that in front of the bond investors and their attorneys, and the point and our attorneys, and the underwriters and their attorneys. And so we've been moving in that direction and had no expectation that we would receive anything less than a 10-year renewal. So again, not asking you to circumvent the law. I'm asking you to exercise due judgment in the spirit of the law. And that is that we can't be compared to a population that we don't serve, but in the population that we do serve, are we comparable to our LEA? And the data points to that we are. I did hear that we won't be able to have all board members speak. Dr. Johnson did make reference to the transportation and the meals that we provide, which is very important because all schools don't do that. And that is very much needed, and especially in the High Point area where we serve, where we are listed as a food desert in many of our communities. And so not only are we academically serving our community, but we're also dealing with their physical, emotional, and mental needs too as well. Dr. Johnson also made reference to the program we have with High Point University. And so I am going to ask Dr. Turner, I do believe that you are there, if you will speak to that, and then we will look to wrap up. Dr. Turner?
Thank you. Good morning. I won't rehash that for time's sake. I'm Dr. Tamara Turner, very proud board member since our inception in 2012 as a licensed educator for the last couple of decades in Guilford County and with St. Forsyth County schools. As a school leader of a predominantly Black and brown charter school myself, one of the original 34 charters. So the concept of a charter school and what a charter school is supposed to do, having that expertise on our board and being very clear about that, and having been a part of this renewal process for our predominantly Black and brown charter school and receiving a 10-year renewal in 2016, I'm deeply concerned about how this 5-year recommendation will be punitive. It will actually cripple some of the things that we plan to do to meet the needs of our scholars. So I won't rehash about High Point University and Cognitive Foundation commitment to us that exceeds 5 years, right? And is requiring our teachers to commit to our Title I school for 4 years a minimum of 4 years in this shortage of teachers and all the craziness that's going on right now. Some very crucial, critical pieces that are needed when you say, well, they're up again in 5 years, how that damages all of those things that we're trying to do to serve the needs of our students. I had a whole statement. I'm not going to do all of that. I strongly recommend that we reconsider that 5-year for those reasons, and to be clear that we are doing what charter schools are supposed to be doing. We are the face of the charter school movement in terms of equity, in terms of providing what's needed for all of our students across the state. Thank you.
Okay, I would ask you to wrap up quickly, that you had 20 minutes, we're at 45, and that leaves us very little time to even discuss it, and you're needing us to discuss it.
Yes, ma'am. We are ready for any questions you may have.
Thank you. I want to respond to this, that somehow we have discretion to redefine how the legislature defined comparability. If your legislator is supporting you in this, he needs to work on the legislature to change the law. Believe me, I run a school that has no white kids, has no Asian kids, and has no American Indians. And Mecklenburg County's highest performing subgroups, I have none, 0. So comparability to the LEA and that not necessarily being fair, I totally get that. But I don't think we have latitude to look at that for 10-year. I do think we have latitude to look at that below 10 years. And we have in the past done that. But really and truly, if you want the 10-year thing changed, you need to get your legislator to work with the legislators to change it, because that's how they defined it, was the entire LEA. Do I think that's fair personally? No, it's not fair to us either. In order to get our 10-year, we literally had to be comparable to all of Mecklenburg County, which is asking us to outperform in our subgroups by literally 30 points. And that's what we had to do to be able to get it. So do I think that's fair? Personally, no. But that's what we're dealing with. So I think what we can talk about is 5 or 7. And so I open it up to the board to discuss that.
May I ask a question? Why would 5 be, when we outperformed 2 out of 3? Why 5 would be on the table?
Good question. It's the low performing status in the, that's what I forgot. It's the low performing status in that 3rd year.
But that's not in the statute.
It's in our rubric though. But that's negotiable. That is something that can be negotiated.
So the only thing in statute that we are
is you do not qualify for 10.
That's in statute. So with some things in statute we are going to hold tight to, and then other things that are guidelines, policy.
10 years is statute. Anything below statute is guidelines, and then that we have some flexibility with.
Okay, so
10 years is statute.
Where does the low perform? I didn't see that on the spreadsheet that was sent to me. I didn't see that on the 5-year or the 7-year. I saw continually low performing on the 3, but we are not. So there's nowhere that it mentions low performing at all.
And like I said, that's in our discretion. And it is something we have considered in the past. It is in our discretion. Nobody's saying that it has to be. That's in discretion. What's not in discretion is 10 years. So we need to talk about 5 versus 7, and you need to let us do that.
Yeah,
I believe.
Go ahead.
I believe if they were designated continuing low performing, then it would be a 3-year.
3-year.
Correct.
So then we'd be doing a 3 versus 5-year discussion, but because you're not designated continually low performing, that's why you're in the 5-year. Correct me.
I was just going to add that, just to put it bluntly, 10 years not an option. We don't have that option. The legislature has not given us that option. So our discussion here this morning cannot be about tenure because you don't meet that criteria. So it is about 5 or 7.
Right, I understand. I was merely asking about that because we never received anything indicating that a 5-year,
Dr.
whether it was
Johnson,
on our call.
If you would let us just talk, it probably will take care of itself.
Thank you.
All right, let's discuss the school. Options 5 and 7, what are people thinking?
So the reason they're being recommended for 5 is because of the D status. Is that a factually accurate statement?
D and not met.
D and what?
D and not met. Because it's the.
Yeah, it was D and not met.
The proficiency and the growth together in that year.
So that is correct. The reason that the school fell within a 5-year and not a 7-year, they did not have any other financial issues, no other issues on the table. But because they were low performing, that is considered like an academic issue. So in considering moving forward to state board and how this would be reviewed, they were put in a category that would give them the most success of being approved to move forward with that. They did not qualify for a 3-year, nor should they. They're not continually low performing. And we do know that if a school is continually low performing, they must be put in a 3-year category, which is why we have such a large list to go behind them. But outside of them having the low performing status, which was the only academic issue on the table, they don't have anything additional that would have put them there. They would have otherwise been in the difference between them and the schools that are in the 7-year category, they are not low performing schools. So that is the difference between a 5 and a 7. But no other issues.
Okay,
I think the school makes a compelling case for 7 years.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah. I think when you look at the 18-19 data in their subgroup, that in the year that we're talking about that they were low performing, I think it's a compelling argument too.
I agree that it's a compelling argument. I will say that not meeting growth is a little concerning because that is only about what goes on in your school.
Sure.
But they're outperforming everybody. The kids are better there than they would have been had they been anyplace else. And I do think that's compelling for 7. I do think that's compelling for 7.
So if we were to make a motion to recommend 7, do you think we would get pushback at the state board?
Either one.
When we sit down and look at the school data, we make the recommendation based on the rubric that we have. It's just, that's all we look at. This was a very compelling presentation. I don't disagree with anything. We certainly support the school.
Yeah.
By my conversations that have been mentioned twice now, I certainly support the school. I do question whether I told that group, the bond financiers, that I recommended 10, but they know that I support the school. But to answer your question, I think there would be some pushback, but I am prepared to advocate for that if that's what this advisory board is votes for.
I would agree.
Go ahead, Bruce.
In recent memory, have we recommended 7 years for a low-performing school?
In the previous years, if there was an instance, I do remember we got pushback for a school not meeting growth and being a D school from State Board of Education. However, the subgroup data, I cannot recall off the top of my head if it was this compelling. So this is a very compelling argument that the students that they've chosen to serve are being very well served as compared to the LEA in which they reside. So if I had to stand before a state board and say, hey, why would this school who's low performing and currently a D after being a C go forward, that would be the information that we would utilize to support for supportive legs of that. But we have received pushback in the past.
And I asked that question too, so our applicant, or the school, not the applicant,
Right.
understands that, we're advisory. And so we can make a recommendation to the state board, but we have to be able to defend it as well. And it can't just be because, they gave a really outstanding presentation on January.
I know. But there's data there. If we wanted to utilize that to move forward, you could surely do that, just as you stated.
And I will also be at the meeting where we present, and feel, I'm very comfortable with, with presenting that data and that argument, because I do think it's compelling, and because
I do too.
Comparing kids to kids who aren't them, like, it's not fair. I don't know.
And with all the other community considerations as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
There's
very
a lot
compelling
going on at that
case.
school, a lot.
Yes. Mr. Sanchez?
Yeah, I did appreciate the presentation and the passion of the board. I think I'd be careful with words like subjective and punitive. I'd be careful in general, just throwing those around. I do share the concern in that 18-19 year of data, though. When you look at 17-18 and even 16-17, there is a considerable drop. I mean, it's considerable. It's not something that is small. It's something that shows that as the school grew, there were some capacity issues. I'm not saying I'd vote against a 7-year with that, but I think it's something worth noting. Is anybody, do we have access to the economically disadvantaged data comparables that were mentioned? I didn't get a chance to kind of like stamp that or write that.
So the school is at 44.2% and the county is at 40.7%. So they're just over 4.5 points above the county.
So the other data that was mentioned was what? I'm sorry, the other comparables that were in the presentation that are...
Those are for the GLPs, the overall. And so if you look at the 3 years, the most recent preceding 3 years, the last year was a negative 7.1, but the previous year was a 5.5. They were above the county, and then 1 point above the county.
The data that they showed us about comparable subgroups, they, however, outperformed the county even in the year that they had a drop.
Absolutely, they did. Almost by
Which means
10
the whole
points
county
for
had a
their
drop.
Latino population, yes, and almost 7 points for their African American population. It was their 2 or more races that fell below the county, the kind of offset. But their students with disabilities outperformed, as well as the economically disadvantaged. And I'm not stating data for the purpose of 5 or 7. I'm giving you raw information.
Just stating the data. Yeah, just stating
to
the
consider.
Did this school stay open? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Were you able to keep your doors open throughout last year and
We did.
first part of this year?
We did. We opened August the 13th, and we had students on campus the entire year. We didn't have one closure. We also have COVID testing. We've had COVID testing since September of this year, all staff.
Were you hybrid, or you had everybody there the whole time?
We had some who chose virtual, and then we had those who were on campus. About 50% of our students were on campus, and 50% were virtual. And then we started our COVID testing this school year, and we have everybody on campus.
What is the current student enrollment?
Our current enrollment is about 840 students.
And that's K-12?
Ma'am?
K-12?
Yes, ma'am.
One way to look at this is that, be it 5 or 7, you have to serve 5 before you can serve 7. So you'd still be a winner.
Yeah, the issue is financial. If a 5-year charter makes it a little harder to do some financial stuff.
And the letters of support are amazing that you provided. So as compelling as the data is, I think those letters are fantastic, and the State Board of Education, the members of the State Board should know that you have strong support from elected officials locally and statewide. So those are fantastic.
Thank you.
I agree, and the partnership with the Condon Foundation, that's just a great opportunity for you and wonderful for your students. And the presentation has been excellent, but it's really because of the content. The content is the work you're doing and the success you're seeing, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we don't get to vote right now. We vote later. You presented a compelling argument. You did a good job. You did a good job.
Perseverance.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to remind the schools that the presentations are 20 minutes. We have 18 schools to see today. We will be here till midnight. I really need people to keep them at 20 minutes.
Yes, we will do a much better job moving forward of staying on par with our time limits. The next school that you will hear from is Lakeside Charter Academy. And I just want to remind you all, originally Lakeside was slated for 5 years, but after the financial report given by FBS, we kind of felt like it may need to be at 3 years. So the school is here to talk about any of those concerns that you have questions for, and FBS is also here.
Okay, Ms. McFadden.
I just want to give you a reminder of the last time we discussed. We did receive the financial audit for FY21. We had changed their status from disciplinary. They were on disciplinary status for a 6-year period to probationary. In the past, they had issues with the ability to meet obligations that were explicitly outlined in the audit report. Their expenditures exceeded revenues for several of those years. There were significant drops in ADM for a couple of those years. There were going concerns indicated on a couple of those years. A going concern is only identified by an independent auditor when there is an issue with the organization's ability to potentially survive that particular year. That's why they were on disciplinary for 6 years. However, in FY20 and in FY21, we did see increase in the ADM, increase in the fund balance. They went from negative 138,000, that's government fund balance, to 266,000 this year, so we have seen an increase in that. We've also seen an increase in their ability to meet their funding obligations. No indications of concern in the financial statement audits, and the going concern has been removed from the financial statement audit as well. All that having been said, we're aware that they did have a PPP loan, like others in the community at this time. But with that having been said, we did decide disciplinary to probationary. Wanted to give you those reminders before they presented today.
Okay, they have not yet heard whether or not their PPP is forgiven?
The PPP from last year has been forgiven. It was $151,000. Currently, long-term debt is $250,000 loan that they have out.
Did they take out a PPP 2 as well, or just a PPP 1?
I only saw an indicator of 1. There was nothing indicated in this fiscal year 21. Just
Okay,
the
so FBS's concern at this point is really more, we just need to watch it, as opposed, because the last 2 years have looked pretty good.
So the last 2 years have looked good, with consideration that they had a $250,000 PPP loan. Even with that, they still had expenditures that exceeded revenue.
Even with the loan.
So last year was still a concern with the loan. This year it's much less. They were only like 40,000 over, but all of the other numbers are definitely improving. And since they have the COVID funds, it's really going to be hard to tell at this point in time. So at least for the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have to be mindful that the COVID money is mixed in there. They had $120,000 left in COVID funding to still spend at this point in time. That's why we were continue to remain concerned, considering they've come from a 6-year history of disciplinary status going into probationary. This is the first year we've considered probation for them. We'd want to at least watch their finances over the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Lakeside?
All right. Well, good morning. My name is Jim Montag. I'm the principal here at Lakeside, and I'll be discussing our enrollment trends and marketing efforts before we break down our financials. So as far as our enrollment trends, that's on the next slide. In 2018, 2019, we had 90 students. In 2019 to 2020, we had 150 students. In 2020 to 2021, we had 212 students, and during that time, 172 were in person and 40 were remote learners. In 2021 to 2022, we have 212 students. We were projected for 265. As we know with the pandemic, we were going to go masks optional, not mandatory. And then the Mecklenburg County Health Department came out and said that all schools, they mandated masks. And at that time, we lost quite a few of the new students that we had brought in. At this time right now, we have 148 applications. We will run our lottery on February 22nd. As far as marketing, our marketing initiatives, we have hired Charter School Capital to help with our marketing efforts for next year. We have put out ads in Kids Directory, and those could be found at, dentist offices, preschools, where you get a lot of traffic for parents and families coming through. We have Facebook boosted posts. We go on foot and pass out flyers to local businesses, churches, and things like that. And finally, we continue to do our festivals in the area of North Mecklenburg, where we set up our tent, meet and greet people, pass out beach balls, sunglasses, literature for our school, and really just get our name out for Lakeside Charter Academy, that, we're Cornelius' only charter school. And at this time, I will turn it over to our business manager, Suzanne George, who will discuss our financials. Suzanne, you're on mute.
Thank you. We've gone over, you've got a high overview of our financials over the last few years. And just to clarify, our PPP loan was for 150. And yes, we did go after that because we thought it would be something that would help turn the school around and get them back on the right track for financial compliance. We were really pleased to how we ended up this last year. There was no findings and no going concerns. When we last talked with the board, there was the elephant in the room was this loan that had been taken out previous to Jim and I coming to work at Lakeside. And this loan had been with angel investors, and we, during the school year the 2020 school year, we reached out repeatedly trying to get some kind of settlement with them, figure out what could be done, because payments had not been done for a long time. And so when we last spoke with you, we were in negotiations with that. And that was the big concern, was getting that taken care of. We were really fortunate. We kept pushing and pushing. And just at the last minute in June 2021, we finally came to an agreement with him. It wasn't the best thing that we thought, but when we went, part of it was ACD, who holds our lease, would have to take back seat on if there was any debt recovery. And so they offered to come in forth and do that loan. So that loan has been renegotiated with ACD. ALK has been paid off. We are no longer with them. It's a better it's a better loan with a better interest rate. But there again, we would like to even get better. But in order for us to keep moving forward with financial, we're looking for a 5-year renewal versus a 3-year. Because as we talk to banks and financial establishments in the community, it's been really hard to build those relationships with them when we've been on a 3-year. And we just keep getting pushed back and pushed back. And so we're not looking to acquire more debt. We're looking to reduce the interest rate even more. And right now for this year, we are in compliance with all the lease payments, loan payments that were acquired from the previous administration and board. So if you have any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions relative to this?
So just to clarify, at this point, it's only been 1 year that you've had no findings and all those things have been removed, is that correct?
We had no findings last year. There was just the going concern, which was based on that loan. So we've been 2 years without findings. And this is the first year we've been without the going concern.
And how many years are they up for?
It's a choice between 3 and 5.
3 and 5, yeah. Okay, thanks.
What are people thinking?
Financial issues.
They've had financially sound audits for the past 2 years.
Yes. Well, they were a going concern still last year. This year, they're not a going concern.
Yeah, no going concerns. In 2019, there was let me go back. In 2018, there was a positive fund balance. 2019 was the year I came on board. There was a negative balance. And then 2020, there was a positive balance. We went from a negative balance of 137 to a positive balance of 86. And then this year we've moved to a positive balance of 271. So the trend is there, and we are working really hard to keep that trend going. But we kind of feel like we're in a spot where, we need that 5 years to keep that growth going, to keep the morale of the staff going, to make relationships in our community, showing that we are a stable force and that we are here to stay.
So 1920, there was no findings, but they were still considered a going concern.
Correct.
So
yeah, the loan was a going concern.
Ms. McFadden, did you say that they still were overspending revenue as late as last year?
That's correct, $36,000 last year.
So, Ms. George, how are you guys addressing, like right now you have this all influx of money. You got all this COVID money coming in. How are you addressing when there's not all this extra money that evidently your ongoing costs are costing more than what you're bringing in?
Well, yes, that was a concern when I came in board. So what we've done, even just recently, our funding was not what we anticipated. And we have currently worked to slash that budget down to the point where it's affordable and it will work. We use Acadia as our financials, for our financials. So I've been working with them to get those things streamlined. We've notified our staff that we're running lean for the rest of the year. And so those COVID funds, yes, we know they're there, but we're not using those COVID funds to provide for the gap. We're using those funds as we wrote them and it's spreading them out and using those for COVID funds. We also were given the Access Grant, which we are being very careful in using those funds as well, and using those for what they were implemented for. We are not being flamboyant or going overboard with any of these funds. We are being very, very careful.
Thank you.
I don't see that any financial numbers have been submitted with this request. Are there any? I see the letter with explanation and narrative, and then we have their testing data. Do we have a current budget, some information? I know the $250,000 was refinanced, but what does that payment come to, and when would that payoff be? The $81,000 expects to be paid off, is it the end of this year?
In September.
In September of this year.
And that was a previous loan. That is not a loan that the current administration took out. That's right. Still a past thing. And then as far as budgets going currently, I didn't submit the budget because our numbers had changed with the state approval. Our current budget, we used the number 265 to create our budget. But then when the state approved their budget and we got what we were approved for, we were only approved for 218. And so I'm currently working with Acadia. I've gotten the budget down to, I've only got, I think I'm 12,000 in the hole right now. And so we're going back through one more time. We're trying to avoid slashing salaries and positions. And so, you know, we're looking at everything we can before we get to that point. And I'm pretty confident that we're not going to have to get to that point. So that's where the budget is. We went from a budget, after we got our funding, we went from a budget that was $368,000 in the hole, and now we're down to $12,000. So you can see that we are really serious about getting our financials in order and staying within our funds going forward.
Thank you.
Even, you know, just even with what you were just discussing, you guys are still really working your way through coming out of this. I'm not sure that we can step back for 5 years to see how this goes. Like, you're coming out, but you're not out. And I mean, even what you were just saying, you still are trying to find $12,000, and you don't want to have to slash salaries. Well, this would absolutely not be the year to slash salaries. And so but what that says to me is you're still pretty tenuous. You're working really hard at it. You've accomplished a lot, but you're still pretty tenuous. And I'm not sure we can back off 5 years on that. I'm open to whatever other people are thinking.
Yeah, it's difficult. They have made great progress and going in the right direction, doing the right things. But yeah, do you step away for a 5-year period?
Yeah, I would agree. I think they've made great strides over the last couple of years, especially with the change in leadership. But again, they're just not quite all the way out. And going 5 years would be a stretch, I think.
Yeah. Can I say one thing?
Sure.
So with, part of it, and I don't mean to be putting blame, it's just what it is, COVID has been a challenge, yes, especially with, we had an influx of students leave because we weren't allowed virtual and because of the mask mandate. So that's one of the reasons, you say that it's we're out of the hole. We thought we were going to be out of the hole this year and really moving forward, but then, September hit, and it was really disheartening to see that happen, knowing what we were going to have to do with that budget. And so, and it's going to keep playing a part in that going forward. And like you said, we do have those COVID funds. We do know they're there, and we are using them wisely. But like I said, we can't make these relationships with these banks or the people in the community that we would like to partner with doing 3 years. They've told us that. They said, you got to grow. So if we're going to wait 3 years and then we have to wait, for some of this to happen, it's going to be really, really difficult for us.
Just a reminder, we're at a 3-minute warning for time.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay.
Did you state earlier that you guys are not looking to take on additional debt at this time?
No. That is the furthest thing from our mind, is taking on additional debt.
I think that's a great idea.
You mentioned relationships with banks, so that caused me to wonder as well.
I did tell you the only thing we wanted to do was to reduce the interest on the loan right now and refinance with someone in our community. ACD is not in our community. We would like to refinance with someone in our community and get that interest rate even lower, but they won't touch us currently.
What's your current interest rate?
12%.
12 or 20?
It's better than 25.
That's a lot.
Which is what it was before. But
That's a lot better than the 25% that they took out with this current loan. A bank wouldn't, and see, when we were trying to do that, get rid of that loan, banks wouldn't even look at us. They said, we're not touching you. Until you guys, are a little bit more stable, you have 5 years under your belt, we're not looking at you.
Okay, thank you. We won't be making a recommendation now. We'll make our recommendation once we've seen all 18 schools. But thank you for your presentation.
I want to say, with a school that's come this far, with academically you're doing well.
Well, yes.
And I am I'm glad to hear how well you know the books. And I have confidence in your ability to do this based on this conversation. I think that the school now has the right person behind the wheel of the financials.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next school that we have coming before you, do you all need to take like a minute?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just let me know when you're ready. I'm gonna reset the timer.
Biology.
for the next meeting. I'm gonna put it under the table.
I use a little space heater at work.
I do too.
A lot of people do.
I do too.
Because the buildings stay cold.
It's chilly.
Sometimes I close my door to trap the heat in, and people think that I don't want them to come in.
Right.
Always welcome to come in, but that heat needs to stay in too.
Yeah.
Saying closed door does not always mean an open door.
And you said it's gonna be colder tomorrow?
It is, about a 10-degree drop.
Tomorrow morning it's supposed to be 21 degrees.
Yes.
Yikes.
Oh, thanks everyone. Exactly what I want to hear.
Maybe I should extend remote learning for one more
Yeah, that's right, that's right.
That'll go
My
well.
toasty office.
Don't think we'll be done at 12:15.
Lunch is here.
Then we have 4 more schools to do here.
4 more.
Ace.
When will we pay? I need to let someone know and I'll call them. What's our agenda set? Oh my goodness, I'm going to break it 12:15. Here it is, I lost my agenda.
You're gonna have so much going on.
And because of this meeting, I couldn't go to the dentist till Wednesday, so I'm moving on. That's my agenda. Okay, are we streaming, Ashley?
Yeah, we're gonna have.
Okay, where's Shonda?
Shonda?
We're ready. Yeah. All right, who's next?
Okay, thank you once again. The next school that you will hear from is ACE Academy. And for the purpose of the remainder of our sessions, I'll start the timer as soon as they start to present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Lila Badot. I'm the executive director at ACE. I've been here.
Can I get
since
you to
the
hold
very-
on for a second? We need to hear from FBS first.
Oh, sorry.
I apologize. I just want to make sure for the record that it was 5 years, no issues with their financial statement audits. And do you want to continue to hear that for the rest of them unless we have an issue? Is that okay? Okay, I just wanted to clarify
Thank
the
you.
process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can go ahead now.
Sorry about that. My name is Lila Manat. I'm the executive director and founding board member of ACE Academy. ACE mission is to equip students from all backgrounds to succeed in the college and career of their choice by driving academic excellence, developing a strong character, and instilling an entrepreneurial mindset. I'm sorry we're not there in person today. We had a COVID situation, and we thought it was best to go virtual. Can we go to the next slide? So ACE started in 2014. We've had some successes and some challenges through the years. We highlighted some of the most recent successes that we've had prior to COVID and even during COVID up to the present. Last year we were awarded, or really this year, we awarded the 21st Century After School Program grant for 3 years, which is great because it offers a free after school and summer camp for our population, and we can implement additional academic support. We also used our ESSER funds to hire a counselor and address the social and emotional learning component that is desperately needed post-COVID. We have increased our PD for our teachers to implement technology, and we are officially one-to-one. Every student has a device. We are working on having the additional devices for students to keep at home. We've implemented common lesson plans for all teachers and a school-wide curriculum in math as well as reading. During the pandemic, we awarded an iCares grant, which we were able to provide additional academic support during the school day, after school, and the summer, and we are still using those funds, which has then allowed us to adjust to be able to save our ESSER funds for subsequent years so we can continue with our MTSS program. And under our MTSS, our students, we have seen lots of pockets of growth that our principal, Dr. Reese, will address. And we have been able to hire 7 full-time people. And then the last but not least, we have increased proficiency levels by 10% and growth by 7%. Next slide. Reese.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Bridget Reese, principal at ACE Academy. I apologize for not being in person. I contracted COVID at the end of last week, tested positive at the end of last week, so I am quarantining at home. This is our MAP data for 2021 school year. As you know, we did not have ELG data for 2020, but we did want to continue with our benchmark analysis. We used our MAP data, and as you can see, we had some challenges and we also had some successes. We used that data to drive our instructional plan. We use Edgenuity for interventions. We also have a K-8 curriculum for ELA and math. We are using Eureka Math for K-8, and we are in our 4th year of using Wit and Wisdom for ELA, which is a very rigorous, diverse curriculum for our students. We compared our ELG data from 2019 to 2021 just so we could have a baseline for our students. We also did cohort comparisons. I did not include that data in our presentation, but this is just from one grade level to the 2 grade levels from 1 year from 2019 to 2021. We saw the biggest deficits with our math as we realized with COVID, teaching math virtually is not ideal, which is why we saw such lower numbers in math for our proficiency for ELGs. ELA stayed a little bit more steady. It's a little easier to teach reading virtually than math, and we did have over half of our students that chose the virtual option for the 2020-2021 school year. This is our current school report card data. As you can see, we have improved each year. At the end of the 2019 school year, we were on target to become a C school. If we had been able to test in the 2020 school year, I believe that to be true. We had showed a lot of growth on our NC check-ins, which is what we took for the 2019-2020 school year. But of course, we were not able to test at the end of the year. But our growth and our proficiency was going in the right direction before COVID. So we continue to have our same academic goals to increase our proficiency and our growth. And if we continue on the trend that we have, we should have a C by the end of the school year.
All right, thank you. We're open for discussion. When I look at your goals, and your goal is to increase by 10%, which would put you at a 53, which would still make you a D.
When we compared our growth and our proficiency combined, the math that I use will put us at a 61, which would be a C. And unless my calculations were off, comparison with our 80% growth, 80% proficiency and 20% growth.
What are people thinking? They are currently placed as a 3. because they're continually low performing. What are people thinking?
Can't help but think of only a 3.
Yeah, because even as I looked at their internal data, it looked like in a lot of places it went down from BOY to EOY, or like I'm a little confused about that. There it is.
For our 2020-21 school year, from our beginning of the year to middle of the year, our beginning of the year, we did not take it at the very beginning of the year. It was late September, October. So that data was a little skewed. This year, we did take our beginning of the year math test the second week of school. So that data looks a little bit different this year than what we compared with last year. And we have seen bigger growth this year from our 2 benchmarks, because we've already taken our second benchmark this year. Our third one is scheduled for March.
And did you present that data?
We did not present this year's data, no ma'am.
So they are currently continually low performing?
Yes, they are currently
So they
continuing.
cannot be considered for 5 years?
No.
Okay.
No.
And just as
So
a
that's not
reminder
in question.
to the board,
More than 3.
ACE Academy and all of the following schools for the remainder of the day, with the exception of 3 for lack of data, are continually low performing, which is why they were placed in the 3-year category, just for a reminder.
So there's really not a whole bunch of conversation. The options are 3-year or none. And so we're not considering none.
Right.
So, okay, thank you very much. We will vote at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to proceed with the next school?
Were they
Or
in the
stop
morning
for-
part? Were they supposed to be in the morning? Yeah, then
They
let's go
are.
ahead. Let's try to finish the morning people.
Okay. So the next school that you will hear from is Carter Community. They have undergone a name change, and you will see that in the presentation, but for the purposes of our report, I kept with the name that we started with to ensure that everything was transparent and smooth in transition.
As I guess this might be a reminder, actually this is new information, I believe. Carter Community was previously on probation for finances. They have actually been on probation since 2018. At that point in time, they had a deficit spending, so their expenditures exceeded revenues. There were negative unassigned government fund balances for 2 years in a row. But since then, we have seen an increase in their financial health. So for the last 2 years, we actually intend to take them off of financial noncompliance this year. That having been said, they did have a PPP loan. They do have over $1 million in ESSER funds. So just like any other school, we'll continue to watch them, and they should be aware, just like any school should be aware, of the impact of those funds on the financial health of the school. I think that was all we had at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you guys can go ahead and present.
Good morning. I am Lamanda Pryor. I currently serve as the principal, and I have with me some board members and my AP and my other administrator. For questions or anything to go with financials and just the school overall, as far as protocols, we will be referring to the board managing director. I'm sorry that we are not there in person. As everyone has stated, we do have a death of a teacher as well as some COVID concerns. We are excited to be presenting to you all. As you all know, last time we were with you all, we were granted a 3-year, and from what I just heard, due to being still continuing low performing, we will be here again. However, I'm excited because we are already in a major reset, a hard reset, as you were told We have gone through a name change. We're no longer Carter Community Charter School, and it was officially changed as of August when we had put through the work and it got voted to be changed to Community School of Digital and Visual Arts. We are excited about that because we took the time to really dive into where we need to go next after we heard from you all. Next slide, please. We decided that it was time for a refresh because we had a slight slip decline in enrollment. As you all can see, we had some effects from COVID, and then we were hybrid last year. We went hybrid one half of the year. Our attrition rates were kind of high, and the major thing was we wanted to see what we need to do to meet the academic proficiencies for our students. How can we address our students, and how can we help them be successful? And then as a minority school, we looked at how we can make sure that our schools parent our students from beyond just us. And to solidify a true identity, Carter has been around a long time. And what we wanted to do is to make sure that the change was so we can have a true identity. What does Carter want to, what does community want to be known for doing well, and how can we prepare our students? We did retain, we are targeting at-risk students, and we did retain that focus of the students that we are targeting. However, what we changed is how we targeted them and what we want to offer them when they leave our institution. As you can see from the slide, we had 4 major keys that we would kind of just speak on what we decided to do and why we decided to do that, and how we are going and how we are moving to do that. Of course, we acknowledge our academic gaps, and we will speak just a little bit on how we and what we are currently doing. We try and improve in our school visibility because we know that we are in a competitive LEA along with other charters, so we want to make sure that we improve our school visibility. We are addressing the social and emotional needs. As I said, we still have a focus on students who are deemed at risk, and with that, we always have had a good success at our social emotional piece. We have really worked hard to build that out even further for our students so we can begin to handle some of the areas that they come in with that is hindering them from being successful academically. And then we worked on just becoming a digital literacy-wide, school-wide. Now, what does that look like? Acknowledging the academic gaps. We focus on the data analysis. As everyone has spoken, we're looking currently, you all have before you some old data, the data from the 19 year. However, we have begun to use our most current data from our MAP scores, and we currently use MClass in our school. We have a digital, a data team, we have a data team that's already working with our teachers on a regular basis to make sure that our instruction match up what our data is saying. We have a curriculum coach with a focus on literacy. Literacy has been a problem, an issue for us. And so what we decided to do is to strengthen our teachers in their instruction to help also strengthen our students. And so what that looks like is that we have a job embedded instructional coach that has been very successful at helping us with our teachers day-to-day instructional, day-to-day coaching, and day-to-day looking at their data and making pivot turns where we need. We have a school-wide focus now with a curriculum for ELA and math. Prior to me coming, we did not have some uniformity within the school as far as curriculum. So in order to see where the gaps were and to see where we were missing, we decided that it was best for us to have some uniformity and create curriculum that's due school-wide in math and in ELA. In our addressing the social emotional needs, we're very happy that we now have Upward Change Health, who is a outpatient therapy-based house in our school that allows us to have a resources for students who come with us with additional emotional, social emotional trauma. We continued our effort with Peaceful Schools of North Carolina, and that included, we just started our training We have, we've already done some of our staff in the restorative justice training, and we will continue that this coming semester with our rest of our staff. We already have been doing morning meetings. We already have been using mindfulness in the classroom, and we already implement a system of bullying inside the class, breaking the cycle. And so we would just continue to employ those efforts as we move forward. One of the things I do want to kind of get to, next slide, please, is why we are so excited about what we're doing. We have decided to go to a digital and visual model. When we did some research within how our students learn, how they best learn, we were able to speak with students, parents, teachers. We did some speaking with people within the community on where where students in our area is headed. And we decided that having a digital focus was going to be a good way for our students to be successful and for us to address our students' deficiencies. We all know that through digital platforms and using digital resources, it allows us to offer students several assistance with where they are and where they're going. We did that, we jumped in first by working with the Future Ready Schools. We are a Future Ready School. And what that did, that helped us to really take time to really dive into where are we and complete a framework on personalized and research-based digital learning strategies for our school and for our classroom. And we will continue to work with them and use them to help us map out how we become in the digital and visual learning school. We have mapped out a 3-year total, not yet. We have mapped out a 3-year total complete refresh. We know it's going to take money, effort, and time for us to totally become a digital school. And so we have mapped out for 3 years how we're going to do that. We know it also takes additional PD while we continue our efforts with our instructional coach for ELA, and we are looking to bring on a math instructional coach. We also know that it's going to take some change in instructional PD for our teachers, and so we have looked to Future Ready to give us our recommendation, and we have a partnership now with the Mitri Group, who will providing job-embedded professional development to teachers using the ISTE standards. Right now, we're offering the digital citizen, knowledge constructor, and empowering learner. So what does that mean? That means that we will be transitioning to a digital school in 2 phases. First, we'll be addressing it through our electives that we offer, and second, we are addressing it through the instruction that we offer. Right now, this year, we are excited because we have started our esports. We have started digital animation, web development, and video gaming for our students to address our switch to a digital and visual arts learning school. We have retained some of the pieces that were successful here, such as music and dance, and they will fall under our visual learning school. Next slide, please. In year 2, we will bring over what we've already done in year 1, and we will add on to it robotics, coding, the visual arts, and web development. And then in year 3, we'll bring over what we've done in all those 2 years to include visual arts and dance too. We are excited because some of the ways that we are addressing that is that we will be able to, and we are in conversations now with county commissioners to be able to offer our 8th graders internships inside the community with companies that are in the digital world. We were aiming to try to start this semester, but of course with COVID and a lot of companies are not necessarily letting outside people in, and we still work with some of the logistics and how that will work and some of the legal legalities. We're aiming to start that in August, but we are still in conversations with some of the local community and local businesses here in the area. As you can see, we know we have work to do, and we are working towards our goal. I do have some members on my board here who would probably want to speak.
Where are we with time Ms. Cooper?
That's why I was trying to get it all in. I know we only have a short period of time.
Okay, we have 9 minutes.
Okay, Attorney Crawford. Okay, I guess Michael Palmer. Okay, I saw them on here, but I guess they are not.
I'm on. I just unmuted myself, and I will put the video on. Well, I guess I'm one of the founding members of the charter of our school. And back in the day when I was directing the Office of Community Affairs at Duke, and we were interested in the school because it resided in one of our nearby communities. We have accomplished quite a lot in 20 plus years that we've been in existence. I am thoroughly excited about where we are today because I think this pivot that we're making right now will actually attract more students and actually help our students. I have 3 grown children. 2 of them are artists, so I understand, how they learn and how they think. And again, visual is, and I'm a visual learner myself, even though I have an analytical background in terms of having been a CPA. But I think we've got the leadership to take us where we need to go. I think on our board we have professionals that are serves the school well as a well-connected board in a way that as we move forward on this mission, if you will, I think we will attract the partners that we need to move this forward. And within the community of Durham, I know there is great interest in serving our children, particularly those that I would say are socially and economically challenged.
I was trying to see if Attorney Crawford was here, but I do not see him. Do y'all have any questions as we move forward? I will try to answer my best.
Okay, thank you. Again, we are talking about a school that's continually low performing, so the options are 3 and none, and we're not really looking at none, so we're ready to go to the next school. Thank you.
I did want to
go ahead.
Mention that this hard reset that you're doing school-wide might merit a new look at your mission statement, which is just one very brief statement and says nothing about digital or visual arts, so you may want to take a look at that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay, we finished up with 6 minutes left on the clock. So the next school that you were here from, and I know the current time is 12:30. We do have 2 schools prior to lunch. Do we want to proceed, or do we want to stop here and pick up after lunch?
What do you guys want to do? This could take us into the time that lunch would end. So what do you want to do?
What was our time frame for lunch?
Was 12:15 to 1 o'clock, and it's already 12:30.
We have 2 remaining.
Are both of the schools,
Dillon.
the next schools are continually low performing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All of the remaining schools with the
It's probably
exception of
going to be
3.
understood.
Right.
Default.
Right. I mean, could we just ask them to maybe
10 minutes each.
Shorten it to 10 minutes each?
Sure.
So we
They've
get
obviously prepared.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So for schools that are listening online, if you would please try to contain your report to 10 minutes. And we do have Charlotte Secondary here in person. So we'll hear from FBS now.
We did receive the financial statement audit for fiscal year 21. There were no financial indicators. They have not had any financial issues in the past 5 years. However, we did want to note that the ADM, the month 1 ADM for this year has dropped significantly and shows a trend of reducing. So they went from 241 last year to 177 this year. Obviously, that's 64 students. Prior to that, they lost 33 students. And I would say over the last 5 years, on average, they were about 15% drop per year in their month 1 ADM.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to hear me today, especially before lunch. I appreciate that. My name is Keisha Rock, and I am the head of school at Charlotte Secondary. This is my second year there. I started last year in the midst of COVID as a first-time principal, and it was very interesting. So I really just want to just talk to you guys a little bit about some of the trends that I saw and some of the things that I'm doing about it. As I looked into data, I looked at EVOS growth data from 2018-19 school year, as well as EOG and EOCs from last year, check-in in biology and math 1 for high school. We are currently in a contract with Transcend, which is through Pearson. They create benchmark testing for our middle schoolers and also provide us with free data because we're kind of like their guinea pig this year. And in the meantime, they're teaching us how to do those same things using SchoolNet so we can do that same data within our own school ourselves. We also did some beginning of the year testing on all grade levels, 6 through 12, so we could learn what grade levels every student was on in regards to Lexile and quintile scores. The next page is just kind of a breakdown of what I was planning last year for being fully in person this year, some of the data that I looked at. Realizing that we had just moved from a D to a C, so how can we maintain that? Looking at where our lowest hit areas are and interventions to intercede on their behalf, and that included the 6th grade EOG scores in reading and math from the 2018-2019 school year, as well as overall of our African American students, students with disability, and our EL population has been significantly low. So moving forward, we have some academic goals that we wanted to implement. We finally reached a C right before I got to the school, so my goal is to maintain that C status for this current school year, with increasing it by 4% for the next year and 5% for the following year. I would also like to increase math and reading proficiency to EOG or EOC levels by 3% per year and try to maintain a steady increase. Some of the things that we're doing to intercede on this, we've been doing strategic scheduling. So at one point, all students were in one class. We now have the academic levels as well as the honors levels, so that the students on the honors level can get that level of rigor to boost them where they are, as well as our academic levels where we are filling in the gaps and providing foundations where they are missing. On our middle school level, we have changed the schedule so that language arts and math are now on a block schedule, so they have 90 minutes, and they're also required to have small group instruction 3 days out of the week, where they group students by their quintile and Lexile levels as we try to move them forward. Again, we did the beginning of the year testing. We will test again at the beginning of our second semester, which is at the end of this month, and then once more before we do our end of grade testing. We're doing vertical planning and alignment, where my middle school teachers are meeting with their grade levels as well as the high school teachers to address gaps in learning and make sure that the teachers are implementing certain strategies before they move on to the next level. Grade recovery contracts for students who may not necessarily do their work, but we're going to give them a second chance to get the work done. For middle school, that looks different. They don't redo the work. We're changing their mindsets. If it's attendance, lack of participation in class, we are addressing those behaviors on a middle school level rather than having them go back and do more work so we can set another path moving forward. We do a lot of in-house professional development around the school. If certain teachers are doing great things in their classroom, like breaking down standards, unpacking, creating levels of rigor, I use them as teacher leaders to provide professional development and coaching. And we also have mentors and coaches outside of the BT years. So even if you're not BT, everybody has a partner or a mentor that they can work with to increase their level of instruction. We are currently in our first year of implementation for our MTSS plan, using some of the ESSER funds to hire interventionists into the schools, language arts, and math on both the high school and middle school level. And we're very intentional about the students that we pick and tracking that data. Even if they don't move on to IEP testing or 504, we still maintain tracking that data so they don't slide down once they've accomplished their goals. And purposeful curriculum mapping. When I got there, I realized there were a couple of challenges that we are incorporating or looking at, and one of them is the decrease in numbers. That's a trend that I've noticed throughout the years. I know this past year we lost a few because at first we were not offering virtual, but now we are. And we also have developed a marketing team. We've set aside funds in our budget just for that, including marketing on a social media level. We are currently doing a contract with Radio 1 to get some media ads out there, as well as looking for other charter schools in the area that we can partner with to become feeder schools. Again, just trying to maintain and improve the state report card rating that's currently a C, teaching teachers how to unpack the standards and recognize the level of rigor needed in the classrooms, because I believe that our students will learn better when our teachers understand what they're supposed to be doing. Efforts to increase attendance to 93%. We're currently at 88%. As well as ensuring all infrastructures are in place prior to when the students came back into the building in August. And when I say infrastructure, we created a student handbook, a parent handbook, a teacher handbook, as well as some discipline matrices, which start with social and emotional learning and restorative practices first. And then increasing the student accountability and parent accountability involvement, ensuring that when we have an issue with the student, even if it's just a small issue, somebody from the school reaches out to get that involvement, because it has to be a team effort. So these are some of the things that I'm doing moving forward to try to increase the status of our great school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any questions?
Any questions for them? Again, it's 3 years or no years, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Cooper, we have one more?
So the next school that you'll hear from, the last one before lunch, is Dillard Academy. And FBS will give you a brief update.
We did receive the FY21 financial statement audit, and there are no financial indicators or concerns with that audit. And there have not been, looks like maybe 2 years that the schools, we've had financials. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Dillard online? Are they online?
Yes, we're here,
Okay.
Dr. Cooper. We're waiting for them to present the slides. Thank you. I'm Carol Battle, and I'm the principal at Dillard Academy Charter School in Goldsboro, North Carolina. Thank you for the opportunity to let us share with you what we're doing at Dillard Academy to move away from continuous low performing. Our current renewal standing is the fact that we've had no significant compliance issues in the past 2 years. We've had sound audits for the last 2 years. And we have met or exceeded growth for the last 2 out of 3 years. However, we're currently designated as continually low performing. Next slide, Mr. Williams.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to speak to you about the first thing that we looked at was our benchmarking and assessment data, because we needed to know where we were. And as we looked at it, we wanted to start with our site-based things that included our teacher assessments, things like classwork, quizzes, and tests, and these are all teacher created. Then we also went one step above that to go to our unit assessments, which come from our iReady resources. And so then one tier above that, we wanted to also look at a grades analysis, which included both progress reports and quarterly report cards. And as we looked at the data from Q1 to Q2, we noticed that in report card grades alone, our A's and B's went from 56% to 67%. So we had a jump there. And if you included C's, it was still also an additional increase. As we looked at our progress reports, we saw similar things. And then we also used our iReady diagnostic. Our iReady diagnostic, and again, if I did not say, I'm Alan Williams, I'm the assistant principal here at Dillard Academy. We use our iReady diagnostic data. We started with our BOY, and then we are now actually in the process of completing our MOY data. We have noticed some dramatic increases in both reading and math within that. From on and above grade level for reading, we saw growth from 9% to 24%. And we still have 14% of assessments that are outstanding. And then in math, we saw a jump of on and above grade level from 7% to 18%, and we still have 12% outstanding assessments for that. So we're already noticing gains in those. We will also go back and look at our students that were 1, 2, or 3 years below grade level. We also decided this year to put fully in place the NC check-ins, especially knowing that the state is moving towards a quarterly assessment for end of grade. We wanted to make sure we were doing this because this would also give our students an opportunity to go be fully engaged in EOG type questions 3 times a year to get those kind of snapshots. And then of course we have our other state assessments like RTA, Amplify, which includes M-Class and Dibbles, and then our EOG. So we've tried to hit our assessment and benchmarking from all tiers and prongs. Next slide.
Ms. Baptiste? Or Mrs. James? Are you on mute?
I think Ms. Danielle should be speaking.
I believe she's on mute. Ms. Danielle?
Just speak. I apologize. I don't know why I thought I was not on mute, but it had me muted. I'm Danielle Baptiste. I'm the Operations and Central Services Director here at Dillard Academy. I'm going to talk to you about our programming at Dillard Academy. All of our programming is North Carolina standards aligned, and everything we do is data driven. We use the explicit instruction model and the blended learning model in order to instruct our students every day. Our schedule was strategically planned so that we could make sure that we had core blocks that are uninterrupted, common planning for teachers to do their PLCs and data analysis, and we have an extended school day. With that 7.25 hours per day, we're able to do daily interventions, which is where our students are able to work on those skills that have been identified on the iReady diagnostic. And we are also able to do Power 45, which provides us with time to do our EOG prep and science of learning work. We have academic summer and after school programs that have no fluff. They are directed specifically towards academics. And we finished a very successful 21st Century Mini Grant Summer Program just last year and hope to do another one this year. Our research-based instructional resources include the Ready Reading and Math resources, the iReady instruction resources, and our resources all yield actionable data that we use to plan our instruction. Next slide.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Kay James, and I'm a member of the Dillard Academy Charter School Board of Directors. And I'm going to talk about improving attendance and attrition reduction. We have hired a part-time social worker and a school counselor to address the social, emotional, and academic needs of our students. We've established an attendance committee that meets weekly to dive into areas of attendance and why students are not in school, and then to reach out to those parents to see if they need assistance. We look at our climate surveys that are conducted at least twice a year, and our surveys trends are very positive. Our parents seem to be very happy with their students attending Dillard Academy Charter School, and our kids feel that they are getting a very good education. They feel safe, and they feel that their teachers are teaching them well. We are offering sports. We've extended our sports activities to include several girls teams as well as boys teams. We're trying to establish a conference with other charter schools, including some in Fayetteville, Wilson, and a charter school that is located here in Wayne County. Our students are working very hard. This is our inaugural year, and they are committed to do their very best. Our public relations marketing plan, we use our Facebook, We have billboards. We're planning to have our spring open house. We use literature. We have signs posted in various business spaces, areas, including places like the Family Y, the Boys and Girls Club, various churches, and other community outlets in the city. We will hold a job fair in the spring. Some of our members attended a virtual job fair. Our students are participating in community service activities when available. And then we're participating in other community events such as city parades and activities like that. We communicate with community leaders and elected officials. With our parent engagement, we have our web page. We use Remind to stay in contact with our parents. We have monthly parent seminars, and those are very engaging. Of course, we correspond with our parents using Google Meet, phone calls, and sometimes just good old-fashioned conversation. We've made quite a few facility improvements, including upgrade in our classrooms and our buildings with things such as every floors have been upgraded in every classroom. We have various amount of technology in the classroom. Each student has a computer, touch screen monitors, whiteboards, and things like that. So we're very proud of the things that we're doing here at Dillon Academy Charter School. Next slide, please.
Ms. Bauer, you're muted.
Okay. Okay, well,
Ms.
actually,
Summerall?
we can see the slide and the time is up.
Okay.
Are there any questions for this school? Okay, thank you very much. We will be making our recommendations at the end of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and that concludes our
Morning session.
sessions before lunch, and we'll continue after lunch. What time would you like for us to set
I'm
that?
thinking 1:30.
Okay, so we will reconvene at 1:30 to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.